All right, should we get started?
Yep.
All right, cool. Hello and welcome everyone. So this is going to be a very special stream slash video, depending on which platform that you're looking at this on, because it will be on YouTube as well. Perhaps more edited down, but the folks in the Twitch chat will get a nice live recording, so they get all the the outtakes, the the bit that we'll cut out and things like that. But yeah, the point of this is that I have a very special guest with me, and I'll let him introduce himself before we go any further.
Yep. Well, I'm Gareth Murfin. I was one of the developers on Vice City, although I must say I was only there about 4 months, so there's people who know everything about Vice City compared to me, but I was there for a while working on it as a coder, I think the ninth coder on the Vice City team. And I've been making games for years on the Amiga and mobile, and most recently Unity. Been making my own games in Unity and doing VR games and things like that for people. And play to earn games, the Web3 crypto stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I've been doing.
Awesome. And you're currently working on a number of projects, aren't you? I think a Switch title that's in development, and also a Cyberpunk game.
Yep. The Switch game should be done in like a month. Hopefully, I'm working on the translation side of things right now. That's called Tenement. And you can see it on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/Tynepunk, TYNEPUNK. And my other one is called Genocide Dolphins, which is a lot like, like Cyberpunk 2077, but a sort of amateur indie version of it, which I've been working on for 11 years now.
Awesome. And just to show to the folks on the stream that this isn't just a sham. I haven't picked him off the street or anything. If we go to if we go to the GXT file for Vice City, I'll pull it up here in a second. It will actually show everyone who's been credited on the game, because that's where it shows all of the text strings. And if you see here, this is Gareth Murfin, credit number 255. He isn't actually credited in the game if you watch the credits, because Rockstar apparently do not credit everyone who works on the game. I remember speaking to Nick 007J to see if there was if this was a very regular thing. And apparently he also said the person who made all of the vehicle logic for GTA 3 isn't even on there. So there are some really egregious examples of people who worked a lot on the game and don't even get credited, which sucks, but there's nothing we can do about that, sadly.
I think they do that when you leave before the end, right? Because they expect you to fight all the way through crunch and be part of the big team. And if you just disappear before the last bit, then they're not very happy. So they just... Now, I'm not just saying Rockstar, I'm saying most games companies take you out if you do that. Or if you're just gone and forgotten and nobody can even remember who you are, then it comes to credit day, like, who's that guy? Let's just delete that.
Yeah. But they are still in the files, sat there. So yeah, you could, if you want to verify it yourself, you can open a GXT editor and boot up your copy of Vice City, look at any of the GXT files in the text folder, and his name will be there. Okay. I suppose let's start talking some Vice City shop, shall we?
Yes.
Okay.
Been a while.
Yeah. So before we actually start playing the run, the first question that Gareth asked me just when we were talking back and forth here when we were setting up was why do you play on the Japanese version? And that's obviously it's a very common question that we get asked, and it's a little more complicated than you think it would be. So if you've watched a lot of speedruns, retro games and things like that, the reason why most people play on the Vice City version, the Japanese version, is purely due to faster text boxes scrolling, so you can spam through dialogue and stuff more quickly. Obviously, Vice City doesn't have any text boxes that you need to mash through. But there's two reasons, and one of them is kind of on the same level. So the first reason is because the Japanese copy, along with a couple of other ones, like the Australian version, are what is called the Haitian-friendly release. Do you know what I mean by that? It might have been after your time, so you might not have been around for it.
Oh, I remember it said kill those filthy Haitians or something, and people got angry about that.
Yeah, exactly. So when the original set of games came out, there was a lot of very, anti-Haitian, terminology, dialogue lines, and things like that. So a couple of years after, they released updates with Haitian-friendly patches. So all of these releases are on like a much newer version, updated script, and everything like that. And it means that some of the dialogue is taken out. So phone calls are shorter and things like that. Some of the cutscenes have less dialogue, things like that. So that's a minor reason. But the other reason is completely unrelated, and that is the major reason why we play it. So in Vice City, there are these things called Instapasses. So we'll talk more in depth about them later. But all you need to know for now is that Instapasses are like a huge glitch that really break the game. But depending on the version that you play, the offsets in the script are different. So different Instapasses work on different versions, if that makes sense. And it just so happens that on the Haitian-friendly release, a glitch that we're going to abuse to skip basically half the game later on requires the Haitian-friendly release. It would crash on the Steam version or anything like that. Yeah, we'll get more into detail on that later on. So we'll start the video in the meantime, and if you have any questions, of course, you're more than welcome to interrupt me as we go along. Okay?
Yep, certainly will.
All right, let's do it. Can you hear the audio okay? Do you want me to turn it up a bit, turn it down?
It's good. Yeah, that's fine. Every time my fridge kicks in, my monitor turns off and the audio. So now and again, I'm in seconds, but it's working. Yeah, this is where I should have been on this credits list here.
Yeah, I mean, if you were one of like 8 coders, they should have been able to fit you in here very easily.
I know all the guys on all of this list.
Yeah, these are very like recurring names. Duncan Shields, Leslie, people like that. You see them on every credits list you could ever find.
Yeah. Mark Hanlon. I left it the same day as him. He went to work for the police.
Really? That's what we want. This is what we want. We want this backstory that nobody else would be able to get.
Will Morton there, he worked for me before he worked for Rockstar, and he actually got the job at Rockstar because he showed a demo of his music for Zombie Massacre, which was for my company, Alpha Software. And I got there and he was sitting there. I was like, was he here?
That's very cool.
Well, I've just been doing Japanese translation today. I love the look at the characters.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like when you go to like look at the menus and things like that, it's difficult, but it's all becomes muscle memory. Like once you've played the game so much, you don't need to read the text, to actually know what's going on. You know the game inside out at that point.
Yeah, I was thinking that today, but I was still looking at my own dialogues and going,
yeah,
what's that saying? I had to stop and go to the debug console.
Yeah. I remember the only thing that requires you to have some kind of, it's not even really Japanese knowledge, it's literally just, like memorization of the Japanese characters, is during 100% speedruns, you need to know where the taxi destinations are, because it just tells you in the text, it doesn't actually tell you anywhere else. So you have to sort of memorize where they are. But aside from that, that's everything else.
You can recognize a couple of them because it's similar to Chinese.
Yeah.
Which I'm terrible at, but I live out in Taiwan.
Yeah, Gareth as well has come all the way from Taiwan to join us, so it's very late where he is. So we'll try and not bring this out too long. So let's get started. Let's do it.
Well, that was a cool intro. What's good this game?
You'll have to excuse my talking through this as well. So I thought I'd put the volume more down as we go, because otherwise it'll be like myself talking over myself.
Oh, you got all right. I see.
Yeah. So, a couple of things to talk about that are just like general strategies that we'll do all the time. One of them is you can basically infinitely sprint in GTA 3 and Vice City until they reworked it in San Andreas, and all that you do is you tap sprint instead of holding it. Like you tap it at a certain rhythm, and that will, it'll give you infinite sprint. That's probably the main one for now.
What's happening? His shirt's all green. That's not right, is it?
Yeah, so the PC version has custom skins. This was a PB from 2019. So actually now, due to an exploit that was found with the file names of skins are actually banned. Because essentially you can rename the skin a certain, thing in Windows Explorer, and you can execute code in the game. So it basically becomes like, a very abusable thing. So yeah, we ban skins and also custom MP3 files that you can do in the PC version exclusively.
Right.
Yeah, so that's why Tommy looks like the Hurricane from WWE rather than looks like normal Tommy Vercetti. Okay, so first things to talk about. Usually, up until kind of recently, when you get to a certain level of the game, you would take the Faggio. You have the choice between the Admiral and the Faggio here at the start. On bikes, you can mash the lean forward key repeatedly to actually gain a ton of speed. Usually when you do it on a controller, it's the equivalent of like holding the control stick like halfway up, like in between fully standing up on the bike and sitting down, and it gives you a boost of speed. It's commonly like debated in the community whether that was intended or a bug, and nobody really knows. I don't know if maybe you can give some insight to that, but obviously, just because you worked on the game doesn't mean you know everything, right? Yeah.
I feel like half these things were put in, well, the way I would have put them in, for just to make testing a little bit easier, and then you never think anyone will really notice, but even if they do, it's still cool, right? It's still an extra thing, so
yeah, of
I
course.
think it probably works a little bit.
Yeah, so usually in the run, whenever we get a choice, we'll pick the bike, like motorbikes or anything like that, even little scooters over cars. But there's a very particular reason that I took the car here, and that's because I want to get a wanted level as soon as possible. So Vice City has a set amount of like police traps that can spawn if you have a wanted level and you enter a certain zone. So the reason why I'm taking this car is to get a wanted level as soon as possible. You see that I'm like running over people and stuff because I actually want to get a cop car as soon as possible. And it just so happens that if you have a 1-star wanted level and you go into the alleyway behind the back of the Ocean View Hotel, you actually get a cop car spawn due to the sort of fixed spawns that I was talking about before. So yeah, I sort of cause a bit of chaos, and then I run in here and I spawn in a cop car. And this is 100% consistent as long as it's like a fresh game boot and you have a 1-star wanted level. Yeah, exactly. So
this so similar.
Yeah. So this is where it gets sort of complicated. So, are you familiar when I talk about on mission 0 and on mission 1? Does that ring a bell to
you? Not really, no.
Okay, so there are two different states that we're going to be discussing. On mission 0 is, when you're in the free roam mode. When you haven't taken any missions, you can start new missions, you can take phone calls, things like that. You're in free roam, yeah? You're not on a mission at all. But if you're on mission 1, then you are on a mission, if that makes sense. So while you're taking a phone call, you can't start other missions. While you're on a mission, you can't start other missions. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's literally just like a Boolean. So, of course, usually the reason why you can't sort of manipulate this variable is because, if you were to start like one mission and then start another one, you would just crash the game because the script is just jumping about constantly, right? Like the game isn't built for that. Yeah. But it is actually possible to fully manipulate this variable using a bunch of broken mechanics. The main one is the replay features that they put into PC. So the function keys, you can actually record replays of things. And it just so happens that replays are completely broken in Vice City and GTA 3, for what it's worth. They weren't really modified too much in Vice City from GTA 3. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to activate the Vigilante submission, because just around the corner here, there is usually a chainsaw rampage, but I need to be able to stand on top of it so I can record a replay over it. Because if you record a replay over something like a rampage or a gun pickup or something, you can actually play the replay back and it will collect the item remotely. Because the replay doesn't actually sort of store things correctly. So you actually pick it up in the real world if you play it via a replay. So as you can imagine, as soon as that was discovered back in 2014, it meant that you can pick up like rampages and stuff like that while also picking up missions at the same time and all sorts of stuff. And it opened the floodgates for Vice City just completely breaking at like a mechanical level. Okay.
I wonder. See, replays won't be a video. It's just like coordinates, right? So yeah, he will still exist in the world somewhere, and they'd just be like passing coordinates through all the characters. Also, on like a rampage, you probably can't record all of the pedestrians and stuff, right? Because there'd be too many. You'll only be able to record the key people. So maybe that's part of it.
Yeah, there is a ton of issues as well that we'll talk about later with like the game's memory. You know, because the game is so old, it can only allocate so much memory to certain things, and we abuse the shit out of that later on as well. You'll see quite soon.
Yeah, the PlayStation had so little memory, and they had to keep streaming in and out of textures all the time, right? Because it was on the verge of crashing basically all the time.
Yeah, I know San Andreas. I'm not too sure about Vice City, but I know San Andreas had a lot of struggles with maxing out the PS2's hardware, because like the games were so massive for the time, 2002, 2004, and the hardware just couldn't keep up with what DMA and Rockstar were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we activate the vigilante submission. And that's because obviously we don't want to pick up the rampage just yet. We want to pick it up on our own terms. So I make a replay over it there, so then I can get back to it at any time. And you'll notice if you're ever sort of struggling to see what mission state we're in, whether it's on 1 or 0, the easiest way to check is to look at the map icons. So currently I'm on mission 0 because I can start the lawyer mission, Ken Rosenberg's mission, right?
Yeah.
So if you're on you see when I'm on Vigilante, it puts me on mission 1 because I'm on the Vigilante submission. So there's no L icon there. So that's an easy way to track it, for the guys at home if they're not too familiar with this. Okay, so now, what do you think happens when we play a rampage and a submission at the same time? Something that you would never usually be able to do because they should, prevent one another. But let's say, for example, that I hold the button to start Vigilante, then I play the replay of the rampage, and the rampage starts, and then I let go of the button to start Vigilante, and Vigilante starts at the same time while the rampage is running.
Who knows? Both should execute. I don't know.
Yeah, so what you end up getting is basically a fully manipulatable on-mission variable. So that's exactly what I do here. So in very quick succession, I'm doing exactly what I described. So I'm holding the button to start Vigilante, and then I play the replay to pick up the rampage to the chainsaw, as you can see. And now it's kind of video glitching because VLC. I probably could have got a better way to play this back, but I don't prepare here. That's not what this is. But yeah, and then I cancel Vigilante because they're both at the same time. And basically what has happened is I'm able to start missions while I'm on the rampage, because it's what we call an on mission 0 rampage, right? So you start the rampage, which puts you on mission 1, and you start Vigilante at the same time, but then you can cancel Vigilante, which sets the state back to 0, but the rampage is still running the entire time, right?
Yeah, I didn't even know you could do replays, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense if you worked on the console version, because obviously replays and stuff wouldn't have been touched until the console version was probably already done with, so... Yeah.
The last thing I did actually was working on the PC installer, but the PC version wasn't finished, and it was replays were not implemented, I don't think.
Mm. Yeah. So just to make it more seamless, I'll show you it in real time, just to show you how quick this is. This is maybe a 30-second detour, but it requires a bit of previous explanation.
Who's really good at games in general. And
So there you go. So chainsaw rampage, you can see the timer running and the amount of people that you've got to kill. But then I'm going to start the first mission of the game, and this is all a setup to skip a mission later on. So, but we'll keep going for now.
And you're just going to beat it as fast as possible.
Always going to watch out for the cops as well. Whenever you're intentionally getting wanted levels, you'll kill a lot of runs by just getting busted all the time.
So this is after you've After you've met that bloke, the lawyer guy, right? You just skip that scene entirely.
Yeah, exactly. We skip all cutscenes simply because they're included in the time usually. So we skip all the cutscenes because it's timed in real time. So if you watch cutscenes, obviously you'd just be losing time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's much easier to follow in there.
Yeah, exactly. So this is what I was talking about earlier when you can see me sort of my head bobbing on the bike. This is me mashing the lean forward key. It gives quite a significant speed boost whenever you're on a bike.
Right, yeah. I remember doing that just because it's a bit tedious.
Take more than 3 hours because of money grinding. Yeah, I was about to say that, Barack. Because of the money grinding stuff.
So we'll skip this cutscene here as well, where we
we
don't need to actually meet all the characters in the game. We'll see them all at some point, I'm sure.
So it'll probably take a lot longer.
I think Pier 2 is a reference to somewhere in Leith, which is where it was developed.
Oh, really? I know that.
There's an area, a big restaurant or something.
Yeah.
Like no casual.
Right next to the pier.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Leith references.
Sorry?
There's a lot of Leith references in Vice City, right? Leith Links and things like
the
that.
golf club, yeah. So this is an interesting little thing. You might be able to give us some perspective on this, maybe. So whenever you're in a vehicle in Vice City, you actually have to use a different button to skip the cutscene compared to when you're on foot, which is obviously a bug. And the reason, as far as I know, is because it's mapped to whatever the PS2 button is mapped to, even though this obviously is the PC version. So when you're on foot, you would use the X button on PS2 to skip the cutscenes, which is also the sprint key, right? You would hold that to sprint. Whereas when you're on a vehicle, the X key would be bound to accelerate to go forward. So you actually have to press accelerate, which is a different key on PC. So you have to press W to skip cutscenes in PC. So that's the first bug for you. We don't really abuse that, but yeah, that's just something that's worth pointing out because it's quite interesting how it works.
Really strange they didn't fix that. That sounds ridiculous.
Yeah. So not abused, but I'll do my best to point out bugs and how we think they work as time goes on, because there's quite a few of them, as you can imagine.
The font looks different too. That used to just be normal pink. It looks kind of blotchy or metal-y.
Yeah, so it was actually redone. I'm pretty sure on the original PC releases, it says mission passed as the text, but for some reason in Japanese they changed it to mission completed. There's a number of different translation things like that. I don't know if you remember, but when you see a criminal running from a police officer, you can punch them, and you get a good citizen bonus, and you get paid $50. That's translated in Japanese to nice guy bonus, and there's a couple of other things like that.
Just removing things that are too complicated. I think, that's what a citizen is. Your native language.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So here, the rampage timer is the most important part. So there's 20 seconds left on the right hand side. I need to make sure. Sorry, go ahead.
That's just somehow manipulating the state underneath, right? That rampage being on is just messing with something.
Yeah,
skip a mission.
Exactly. So this mission is currently working as normal. The only difference is that the rampage is running at the same time.
Right.
But as soon as that rampage ends, you have 2 minutes to complete the rampage, and I'm not going to complete it. So after 2 minutes, real time, it will fail, right? And when it fails, you get set back to on mission 0. And that's what we're going to abuse, the switch between. Yeah, so as we keep going on, we're going to get into a state that's basically we're going to go back on mission 0 because the rampage is gonna fail. Then we're gonna restart the rampage later on, and then we're gonna use that setup to break the game essentially.
Right. That's a bug left in by the mission scripters, really.
I mean, to be fair, there are quite a lot of things in Vice City that you would say, we were talking about the PS2 control stuff, and it was how did they miss that? That really should have been fixed. This took 12 years before anyone discovered it. So I would say, it's pretty, I can't flame the developers and the QA testers and stuff too much for not spotting this, essentially.
Yeah.
There are a number of theories and stuff that a certain like community found this way before we did. We discovered it in 2013, 2014. Apparently some people knew about this, even in the previous decade, but I'm not too sure how true those things are. So coming up here, usually the chef in the alleyway that you have to kill, there is an entire cutscene and you get taught about melee combat because you beat him up to get the phone. But if you're fast enough, you can just drive straight through and kill him before the cutscene even has a chance to play. You'll see here. I'll rewind it so we can see it without the artifacting from VLC. Yeah, there's nothing to this. It's literally just flinging ourselves at him. Yeah. Okay, so this is a particularly risky strategy that we call man duping. And basically the idea is that we're manipulating the on-mission 0 variable again. I want to pick up the rampage, the chainsaw rampage again as soon as possible. But I can either do it after this segment where we meet Lance, or I can do it beforehand. But the only way to do it beforehand is to, let's say, basically jump in the air like I just did there, and then play the rampage at a specific time, so I pick it up at the same time I collect the phone. The reason why this is particularly risky is because the whole game is based on cycles, so every X amount of frames, the game checks whether you can pick up something. So if you get unlucky and the cycle is off, you will pick up the rampage without collecting the phone, and you can't collect pickups while you're on a rampage. That's something that was still a thing in GTA 3 and Vice City. So, yeah.
So if you got that wrong, you wouldn't have been able to pull off the trick.
Yeah, exactly. So if I was even like a couple of frames off here, I would have to restart from scratch, basically. Yeah.
Oh, what a nightmare.
Yeah, it is a nightmare. So yeah, usually people would do it after this cutscene, but I did it beforehand.
Watch a lot of GoldenEye ones. They have stuff like that in them as well. I forgot about that. Yeah, GoldenEye speedrun.
Very similar. Yeah. But then this is all done as intended. You just pick up Lance and you go and drive him to the ammunition. The only difference, as I say, is we still have the rampage running because I restarted it. And this particular rampage timer here is what we're going to use to essentially skip the next mission, which is Jury Fury. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to duplicate the mission. So we're going to start the mission, then we're going to start the mission a second time. And the way Jury Fury works, the mission itself, is you have to intimidate the two jurors by damaging their cars. And once you've done X amount of damage to each car, the mission passes. So when you duplicate the mission, it actually spawns two sets of cars on top of each other, right? Because there's two of everything.
Yeah, so, they just hurt each other.
Yeah, exactly. You spawn the two sets of cars, they land on each other and damage each other. You know, the other one flips over and blows up or whatever, and yeah, the mission just instantly passes. So
it is amazing.
Yeah. And something I forgot to mention really quick there is I actually gained control in this cutscene. This is just kind of like an oversight by the developers, if anything. So if you get to the Ocean View Hotel quickly enough, right at the start of the game, when I was driving around with the Admiral, it doesn't play the introductory cutscene where it shows the ocean view. So it'll play it when you're next at the Ocean View Hotel, which just happens to be during this cutscene. And then because this cutscene with the Ocean View Hotel finishes, then obviously it gives control back to the player during the cutscene.
Yeah, so it expects that the trigger's already been hit, but it hasn't, so it happens again.
Exactly, yeah. You'll see this a lot, where we basically abuse the game giving us control back so we can move during cutscenes and stuff, which gets very goofy later on.
First time I saw a cutscene that wasn't just a video was probably Vice City, so those cutscenes were really advanced and amazing, but yeah, there's bound to be some way to exploit them.
Yeah. So I'm doing some more replay stuff here. Basically, because I crashed during Back Alley Brawl, I'm a little late compared to how I'd like to be, because we need to take a phone call here from Leo and then set up for the glitch, so I'm a bit far behind. And when you play a replay, once an audio line starts, obviously the audio line is just like an MP3, right? So you can play a replay which stops the game from progressing, but the audio line still continues. so I can basically use it to like gain a bit more time back in game while the phone call is still going ahead.
Seems like they shouldn't have bothered with replays.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason they were wiped very soon. They completely redid how they worked in San Andreas, but then they were still kind of shit, and then yeah, they were gone by the next games. So yeah, here's the Jury Fury dupe. I'm deliberately walking in when there's 3 seconds left on the timer, because that's just enough time to set it up. So I enter the mission, I skip the cutscene, and then as you can see, Tommy walks in again because of the fact that I went on mission 0 from the rampage failing, and then the mission is duplicated. So there's 2 sets of cars, 2 hammers, etc. And then if we just wait a couple of seconds, the mission passes, just like that.
So that's the one where you smash up the guy's car with a hammer, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. And we complete the mission in about 3 seconds.
I watched your videos on YouTube. Oh. I hope you like them.
You'll see a lot of the duplication stuff later on, because yeah, it's a very easy way to break the game. This mission isn't nearly as complicated. We don't go and pick up the clothes from the place that gives you the overalls from Raphael's, because there's simply no need. Usually you would have to get a bunch of overalls and then fight these guys to start a riot and have them open the gates. But we have a shotgun from entering the cop car earlier. When you enter a police car, it gives you 5 shotgun shells by default. So we can actually use that to just straight up shoot the barrels and blow this up straight away. And
wow.
Yeah.
This one's normally a pain, yeah, doing all that.
Yeah. And then we blow up the barrel nearby to Death Warp because we want to go to the hospital for Cortez's missions because he's right next door at the marina.
I was going to say, you messed up there, man, but that was deliberate.
Very much deliberate, yeah.
I used to have a T-shirt with that on, the Rampage logo.
Really? That's cool.
Yeah, one of my cleaners wrapped it around a mop and mopped the garden out and ruined it. Well, I say one of my cleaners. I don't have cleaners, but I had someone to clean once.
Yeah.
Never do that again.
We all know the Vice City money. It's gone to your head. Now you've employed cleaners and all sorts. Bought a palace in Taiwan,
Yeah.
House, mansion, everything.
I never even played the PC Vice City, ironically.
Was it all console, I assume? All PS2, yeah. It's what most of us played when we were a kid. I didn't have a PC back in 2003. Either it was all PS2 stuff that I did.
I think I tried to play Vice City Stories on the PSP, but it wasn't that good.
I always use emulators for that stuff because you can play it in proper 1080p and whatever else. Okay, so here I'm making a replay over where a gun is going to spawn in a couple of missions' time. Ignore the fact that this is the first mistake in the run. This is me trying to look cool by getting out of the garage and I fuck it up. But yeah, so that one works exactly the same as all the Rampage pickups. It's just, I'm making a replay in the multi-story because during the mission Guardian Angels, a gun is going to spawn there. And when you pick up the gun, it teleports you to the next part of the script. Where Lance comes and picks you up. So it's basically a free teleport there. So yeah, it isn't used for this particular mission, but you'll see it later on. And it's basically just saves me driving there later on. But this mission is very much done the intended way, chainsawing Gonzalez. The only difference is that we kill him before, he's able to escape to the police station, like usual.
Yeah.
And then here is where they introduce the pay and spray mechanics. But instead, we grab a police bribe, because we only have 2 stars. And as soon as you grab a police bribe, obviously it takes you down to 1-star wanted level. And then when you have a 1-star wanted level, your wanted level expires on its own eventually. So we use that time while it expires to just drive back to Cortez without... We skip the pay and spray entirely.
Right.
It's classical tune.
And this is some nifty movement behind the in the back of the hospital. Quite scary to do because one wrong move and you'll drown. Not good.
Oh yeah, gangsters can't swim.
Yeah, exactly. Not until San Andreas, at least.
Yeah, the controls were a bit clunky back in the day. You could easily fly off into that sea.
Oh yeah, very very much easy. Yeah. So this next mission is also quite simple. It's the one where you go into the mall and you steal the chips or whatever it is from the the French government, and they get really annoyed at you. Yeah, the only thing that we do here is when you drop off a ledge like that, you can press the jump key as soon as you land to skip the animation where Tommy does like a combat roll. So it allows me to catch up with him before he's able to escape. Usually he runs off on a bike and you have to chase him down, but you can kill him before he even gets there. So yeah, just skip the cutscene, drop off the ledge, and then cancel the animation and just sprint right after him and kill him.
That roll is a lot slower, is it? Or you just have to get your sprint speed back up or something after it?
So yeah, it's just quicker to not have the roll. It's a couple of seconds of animation that you don't want to deal with. Very close to flinging myself into the ocean there. Yeah.
Jesus. Fucking launched.
I went a little bit faster. Usually use the tree to sort of break your speed down, so you can bail off. But went a little bit too fast. So this is the way you use the replay here. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just wondering what happened there.
What part, sorry?
So you go in there, and then he goes back in again.
Oh yeah, so this is just starting the next Cortez mission. Because it's right there isn't a marker or anything, it doesn't spawn, but the actual like trigger for the mission is there right away, so you can just head right back in. So that's more shootout pass, and then we just head and start Guardian Angels right away.
Mm.
And then yeah, so here is where you have to pick up the gun to sort of trigger the next part. You would have to drive to the multi-story. But because we have that replay of the gun, we can just pick it up straight away and teleport there. And now we're going to make the most broken replay in the entire game, which is, surprisingly enough, the clothes pickup. It's easily the most broken replay in the game.
This is me singing.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
It is a bizarre thing, but...
Almost like an in-game feature.
So, close replays have like a number of different benefits. We'll talk about some later on. One of them is that it's the same as what we talked about before. So it actually takes away control from the player while you pick them up, and then it gives it back to you. So if you trigger a clothes pickup just before cutscenes, you could trigger it so the clothes pickup actually gives you control back during the cutscene. So you can move during them, which is obviously very abusable. And also another thing that it does is, just off the top of my head, it also, because of the fact that you lose control of Tommy, when you lose control of a character, it actually puts out all fires. So let's say, for example, that you're in a gunfight and you're driving by people and shooting them, and they're shooting back at you. You technically have infinite health because every time your car sets on fire, you can just pick up a clothes pickup and it will stop the car from being on fire and it will reset their health. So, yeah. It basically makes you invincible.
I wonder why it does that. Puts fires out.
So my guess is because of the fact that it takes away control from you. Obviously, like, those two are just linked together, right? So whenever you don't have control, you shouldn't be set on fire because that would be unfair from a gameplay perspective, right? So, if there's a car on fire next to you and it's going to explode within 5 seconds, and you start a cutscene where you lose control.
You don't want a cutscene like where the whole scene's on fire and the cars are blown up and you would just look ridiculous. So they just stop it all.
Yeah. And obviously Tommy is usually physically present in those cutscenes. So if they were to blow up next to him, you would die in the cutscene, which wouldn't be very fair.
Well, presumably he's invincible, isn't he, during cutscenes?
No, a lot of the time he isn't. But what they did deliberately was they made it so, nothing can hurt you, but you're not invincible, if that makes sense. So if a car somehow did blow up, it would kill you. Apparently I'm wrong. Nick is telling me Tommy is invincible during cutscenes, so ignore me. But I don't understand how that works, because if a car blows up to you next to you in a cutscene, you can die. So if he's invincible, how can you die to the car explosion? I don't know.
Oh, he can't be invincible. I've seen that happen.
We can talk about that later.
He'd be invincible on the ones where he's like close up, sitting, and drinking a glass of beer, but he's probably not invincible maybe on the ones where he's standing as he would in game, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, there's a key difference between cinematic cutscenes, where he's like animated to drink beer and stuff, and the in-game cutscenes where it's the actual player model. That's just existing in the game world. I'm not sure if that's the key differentiation. I'm not sure, but yeah. We'll
see why these. I've coded my own replay system, and now I know that probably I've got all the same bugs.
Yeah, maybe. If you copied a GTA 3 system, then maybe consider tweaking it a little bit.
Kill cams are basically just replays, so there'll be other games with the same sort of issues.
Yeah.
You can't skip this one.
Yeah, this one is unskippable, yeah. For some reason, some of the in-game cutscenes are unskippable and some of them aren't. I don't know why. Some of them you can only skip at a certain time. It's very strange, yeah.
So maybe they let the time for people to spawn in and stuff like that, get to a certain point.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not too sure. So this mission is what we call an auto-scroller. Do you know that from other speedrun terms, maybe? Are you familiar with that term?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so in this particular case, it might be different depending on the community, but we define an auto-scroller as basically a mission that's like on a timer, if that makes sense. So no matter what you do, the mission will still progress at the same time. So in this example, you're supposed to be looking after a drug deal between Diaz and the Haitians, right? So no matter what you do, as long as you don't fail the mission or something daft, then the Haitians that spawn in, that ambush you, always spawn in at the same time. So we can essentially use this as like a time to do whatever we want that would benefit us in the speedrun, if that makes sense. Because as long as we're there for the final set of spawns, then we're always going to be on time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so you can go and set something else up in the meantime.
Yeah, exactly. So this particular deal, and this happens with a lot of missions, the only check for whether you like run away and abandon the deal is whether the actors are on camera, if they're on screen. So if you were to run too far away and you're looking at the direction that Tommy's looking in now, you would fail the mission after a couple of seconds because it would realize that Diaz isn't on the screen, so you've gone too far away, right? But as you can imagine, the fact that we have free control of the camera, we can abuse this very heavily. So we can use this time during this mission to go and pick up things that are miles away that would usually fail the mission, as long as we keep Diaz on our screen, even if it's through a wall. So
I was going to say.
Yeah. So here I'm going to the police station to collect some grenades, and as long as Diaz is on the screen...
Oh, God.
The mission doesn't
totally imagine how that works, too, because there's no proper, like, occlusion. It's just a coordinate in the world space. Basically, is it in front of you or not?
Yeah, exactly. That's all they check for, I'm pretty sure. It's the only thing that they check for. And then these guys drop a lot of guns, so we're also going to use this to collect a lot of ammo that we're going to use during the run as well. We have to kill all of these guys for the final set of them to spawn, so we may as well just clean them up as we come along. And then with the final set of guys spawning, this is where you're going to see the closed replays become super abusable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kill the final two guys that are going to spawn in just a second. And when you kill that final guy, immediately a cutscene starts where the guys pick up that briefcase here and they drive off on motorbikes, and you have to go and chase them and kill them. But obviously, usually you would watch the cutscene where they drive away, so they're not in like killable distance, right? Because they've already driven away in the cutscene, so you have to chase them. Yeah. However, if you time the closed replay correctly, you can gain control in this cutscene, which allows you to kill them before they can even drive away, which is it's very cool looking. Yeah. So I'll show you it real time.
It's Melis and Brosa.
Yeah. Kill this guy. kill this guy, play the close replay, and you see it sort of fades out and fades in again just before the cutscene. And there I am. And kill this guy before he drives away. Yeah.
Yeah, I can totally picture why that is. That's amazing.
Yeah. And then exactly the same here when I'm speaking to Diaz. I can just run and get on the bike and drive away while he's still talking to me.
He's having a conversation and you're not even there.
Yeah. Some reason as well, I'm not sure exactly why this is a thing, but so during this cutscene, Diaz says, great job, you've done well, these guys are dickheads, whatever, come and work for me. And then Tommy says, shit, where's that guy Lance? Because Lance is, disappeared off the face of the earth. He's just despawned, I guess. And usually there's like a delay between those two lines, but if you're a certain distance away from Diaz, they play back-to-back immediately. So it's actually twofold, because the dialogue plays a lot quicker when you drive away in the cutscene for some odd reason as well. So
I wonder, does it sound quicker, or is it just a delay?
It could be like there's no pause between the two MP3 files; they just play back to back.
Strange. I was going to say it could be something to do with the Doppler effect, but I think that would be a bit too advanced for back then.
No, it's. I mean, the camera angle is fixed. It's entirely dependent on Tommy's position.
He's a nobody. A16.
Yep.
Don't worry about it.
It's a weird one. I'm not exactly sure. Yeah.
Angry drivers.
But I think if like an ambulance goes past you in the game, right, you do hear it change as it goes far away.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
So there is some sort of Doppler in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that cutscene audio is isn't relative to your position at all. It's just just an MP3 file that plays. Okay, so in speedruns, you talked about Doom speedruns earlier. Out of bounds is very heavily abused, right? In Vice City, there actually isn't that much out of bounds at all, but this is one particular instance where we go out of bounds very briefly. So this is what we call the gate zip, and essentially how it works is we're going to push ourselves into a gate, and we're going to get off the bike, and that's going to push Tommy out of bounds. And the reason why this is particularly useful is because there is a gate that's blocked to Starfish Island, right? Because we haven't taken the phone call from Diaz that says, hey, come and work for me on Starfish Island. And then the gate would unlock based on that phone call. We haven't taken that phone call yet, so the gate's locked. It's closed off, you can't get through it. But if we go up to that gate and we fall out of bounds somewhere near the gate's position, the game actually has dedicated safe zones where if Tommy falls out of bounds for too long, the game will realize, oh shit, Tommy's out of bounds, we'll put him to a safe location. And it just so happens that the safe location on Starfish Island is on the other side of the gate. So essentially, if we clip out of bounds, the game just puts us on Starfish Island, regardless of whether the gate's there or not.
Yeah, you could do that in Mario Kart. I remember doing tricks like that in Mario Kart with Lakitu or whatever he's called.
We actually abuse this later on to also get to the second island very quickly, but yeah, there you go. We just teleport through the gate.
Wow.
And losing half my health too.
So
that one wasn't.
It's a very small implementation, but it looks really cool.
I love getting on the.
And then there's another glitch that I do straight afterwards, and basically it's called glitching calls. So usually phone calls in Vice City, when you take them, you can't switch weapons or sprint or anything. But if you get an equipable rifle that you can aim with, like a sniper rifle, the Kruger here, the M60. Anything like that, anything that has like a scope that you can right click and aim with, you can answer the call and then immediately right click to like enter the aiming state. And then when you exit the aiming state, you'll have free, control of Tommy. So you can switch away from the rifle and you can sprint while taking the calls. So this is, just essentially a way to speed up rather than slowly walking while answering the phone. We can sprint and run at full speed.
Right.
You'll see that used a lot. Again, I'll show you this whole sequence in real time. Equip the rifle, answer the call, and then go into the aimable state, and you see now I can run while taking the call.
So it's on a call right now.
Yeah, exactly. You can see because the subtitles of the call are playing.
Let's see.
And these replays, all that they do is they just shorten the fade between starting the mission and starting the cutscene and stuff. So you see, instead of fading back in when you start the chase mission, it just sort of, snaps back in. That's what those replays do. It only saves a half a second or so.
How did you skip that? Oh, you could just skip that anyway, can't you? In the PC, I guess.
What's that, sorry?
The Welcome to Vice City screen. I remember. I thought that was a bit longer for some reason.
Oh yeah, so I completely forgot to mention that. It's good that you haven't touched the PC version, because that I wouldn't even think to mention. But this is just as simple as that's a loading screen, and because I'm on a much higher end PC, the game loads the next island very quickly in a matter of frames. Whereas on the console, which is what you're used to, that would be a 5-10 second loading screen. But yeah, so we don't skip that. It's just the game, loads stuff in so quickly because I'm on a modern PC.
Just need to wait.
Exactly. Yeah. If you want me to go back and explain anything, by the way, please do say, because I understand this is a lot of information to take in right at the start, because the start is very broken of the game. There's a lot of things to explain, a lot of mechanics and stuff.
I think if I hadn't written my own replay system, I wouldn't be able to get it as much. But now I've done mine, I know exactly what it's like. Right, these are the sort of bugs you have to fix.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a very also another minor usage of the close replays. You play the close replay and then bail out of the car, and because when you pick up a clothes icon, it sort of resets like Tommy in terms of how he stood, his position and everything. It skips the animation of him bailing out the car and getting up and everything like that. He just stands back up immediately.
That blew.
And, we're going to do more close replay abuse here. So when I drop down, so I'm going to chase this guy, and he's going to drive off in a BF injection. And again, usually he'd drive off in the cutscene, so we'd have to chase him. And we have to chase him all the way to Prawn Island, where where the mission ending trigger is. And the mission passes once, we're at Prawn Island and he's at Prawn Island. That's basically all the game checks for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually use the infinite sprint by tapping the sprint key to get past him. And I'm going to steal his car before he can get into it, and do a bit of, a bit of tomfoolery to basically drive him to his destination, rather than him driving and us chasing him.
I don't know how you're going to do that, though, because he won't just sit with you in the car, will he?
So this one, I honestly have no idea how it works. Maybe you'll be able to see it and give some perspective. But yeah, we'll see. So I play the close replay, gain control. I throw him out of the car, the driver, and the gunner is the one that you have to take. So I kill the driver. I'll come back. So yeah, gain control. I kill the driver because the game doesn't check. The game doesn't give a shit whether he's dead or not. So kill him, and then once he resets, we get out in and then get in like that, and we sort of like overwrite his position. If that makes sense.
So where is he? Is he underneath you?
He's underneath me. Yeah, you can see. I might have to show it a few times because it's a lot to take in. But he like gets out of the car and gets back in, and as he gets in, we get in at the same time, and we just we overwrite him. You see?
Oh right, yeah.
Sit right on top of him.
So you can't get him there.
Yeah, and then we can just drive straight to Prawn Island, and the mission passes. So usually he would drive all the way around the North Point Mall very slowly. But we can just drive him straight there.
So do you have to time that perfectly to get in at the same time, or
yeah, it's about half a second of leeway. Also, it's very difficult to do if you don't know the timing for it.
If you missed that, you'd have to do the original way and drive all the way there. Yeah.
So the chase is one of those missions where there's like a million different ways to do it. So there are backups and stuff if you do mess that up. But yeah, if you do goof it, it's pretty bad a lot of the time. Because obviously, if you do end up having to chase him, it's a big time loss. Yeah. And then just some more minor close replay stuff here. Because again, we just gain control so we can drive in the cutscene a bit quicker. And then this is another example. It's very similar to the gate zip. So I'm going to drive myself into the ocean, but I'm not going to die. And so this is a mixture of two things. So this is the safe point manipulation that I talked about before. you know, you can see here there is a blockade. You're not supposed to be able to access the other island straight away.
Yeah.
But this particular car, this BF injection that is spawned in as a mission vehicle during the chase, it has the property heavy. And for some odd reason, heavy cars can drive through the ocean without the game registering that you're drowning, if that makes sense. So if you drive a heavy car into the ocean, the game just doesn't check. I don't know if you fall through so quickly or what. I'm not sure what the logic is behind it.
Probably falls so quickly that the physics doesn't check in time.
Maybe, yeah. But yeah, what it basically means is that we can drive straight into the ocean here, and after a certain amount of time of being out of bounds, the game is like, oh shit, we're out of bounds. And it just so happens that the failsafe point is on the other side of the blockade, so we can go to the second island.
It's nice.
Yeah. And there's a million different reasons why you'd want to go over to the other, sort of side of the island early. But the particular reason that we want to do it is because we want to get this helicopter here. Because these next couple of missions for Diaz involve, after this next mission, we're going to unlock the second island, officially. So the missions, they want to show you how to, they want to introduce you to the area, right? So they send you back and forth between the islands. So the helicopter is by far the fastest way to get between them all. So we're going to use that for a couple of missions.
I'm surprised it doesn't crash or something, just getting to that point, and I thought there'd be no people or cars or something, but it looks like it's still working.
Yeah, all the traffic spawns as normal, all the pedestrians spawn, all the rampages are there, the packages, everything is there as normal. Yeah, so we park around the back of the mansion, even though the mission is actually at the front. That's for a simple reason that we're going to grab it later on. It's just more convenient parking. And then we're going to go into the hedge maze, because there's actually a sniper rifle in there, which we're going to use later on. And again, phone calls, as we talked about before, they're kind of auto-scrollers. I have to wait for the phone call to finish in real time. So we might as well grab the sniper rifle while we're waiting, if that makes sense. So if you wanted more close replay shenanigans, here's one for you. So this mission, when you're on the helicopter with Lance, you're in anything what's called turret mode. And when you play a close replay in turret mode, and then right-click to exit it, something fucky happens, and your gun shoots at 1 bullet per frame, so 30 bullets per second. And this gun that you have, this M60, kills everything in one shot. Because it's it's supposed to be very powerful, but very slow to shoot. But with this particular glitch, when we do the turret mode manipulation, we shoot at 1 bullet per frame. So we're just going to absolutely nuke these guys on the rooftops.
What's this run at 60 or 30?
30, yeah, the game runs at 30. Upgrade from San Andreas, which is locked to 25 on PC. Not even 30 FPS.
It did seem a lot slower.
Yeah. So yeah, as you can see, we just absolutely destroy these guys. And also, when you're in turret mode, the camera would force you to look at certain points. But we also have complete free control of the camera here, so we can just pre-fire people as soon as they spawn. And
you can see because the muzzle flash is totally fucked.
Yeah, exactly. And you can see just how quickly we nuke the cars. It's a complete massacre.
No opinion, sorry. Not the person you want to be at.
Yeah, we could work out why that is from that VVC thing.
Don't deal with
modifying. As far as I know, it's some kind of animation issue. That's what I've heard, but I haven't really looked too much into it.
So I couldn't say the first thing about it.
So this one's quite funny. I'll let it play. See your live reaction to it before I explain how it works. We just killed Lance, and the game doesn't care.
Oh. Was that cop down? Did it normally go down like that?
No. So this cutscene, usually these 3 guys, you don't kill them before the cutscene happens. And there's a bit where they shoot at you and he says like, you're on my turf, you're going down, blah 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 blah. And then as soon as you kill those guys after the cutscene, Lance starts lowering you down so you can go and pick up the briefcase, right? But because we kill these guys, this cutscene like doesn't play properly. So it does play for like a second, but then there's no guy there, so it doesn't play the audio or anything. And it allows us to get in a perfect position to shoot Lance. And so obviously you were never expected to have control of Tommy during this point, so the game doesn't check for whether Lance is dead or not really. So if you shoot him with really specific timing, you can get him to die, and then as a result, the helicopter flies down immediately because obviously there's no pilot. And the helicopter actually flips over because it lands so harshly. And then once the helicopter explodes, obviously the game does check for whether the heli explodes because, it's tracking your health. This is how you would fail the mission normally. Yeah, so in turret mode, you can't turn and kill Lance at all, so the game doesn't expect you to kill him. But it does check for it does check for the heli being dead. So the helicopter flips over, and you have a matter of seconds to go and pick up the briefcase, otherwise the heli explodes, and you fail the mission. So that's why I sprint my ass all the way up. And yeah, so we kill Lance, and just get out of the helicopter immediately. Run past all these guys. And yeah, if you don't pick up that briefcase within about a second or so of me doing so, you fail the mission, because the helicopter's blown up. But yeah, you have just enough time to get it, and Lance magically respawns and comes and picks you up.
It's ironic. These bugs are actually because it's been developed so well that all these things, can happen.
Yeah, exactly.
It's amazing.
Yeah. That's why I'm saying I'm not the person you want to speak to, because I have no idea.
So this mission is entirely trivialized by one single button press. This is one that you could do at home if you wanted to. If you ever played this game on even on consoles, it works. It doesn't even need to be PC. So you know how in Vice City there's no like enter animation for boats? The way it works is you just teleport to a boat if you press the enter vehicle button near it. Because, there's no way to enter them properly, so the game just teleports you in if you're within a certain distance. Well, this particular mission, you have to steal a boat from the docks, but it's fenced off. Usually you have to go and lower it by fighting through a bunch of dudes. But if you stand here and press F to get in the boat, you just teleport straight to it, because, of the way the boats are coded. Yeah.
That is terrible, that one. Like, I can't believe that's not been fixed. Surely people would try that.
I mean, this is one of the most well-known things, I would say, in the game entirely, and yeah, that's never been fixed. You can do that on the latest patch, if you want to.
Just not me. So asking runners in general...
Yeah, that's the whole mission, done in about 30 seconds, with one button press.
That's also just me in particular.
No, it's not even fixed in Definitive Edition.
Right down there.
What do you think of Definitive?
Oh, that's a story for another day. we can have that conversation later during the Q&A, I'm sure. Because I'm sure people will ask you your opinion of Definitive Edition. So.
I haven't played it.
Have you not? Okay.
Heard about it.
I'm sure you've heard many things.
I remember looking at it and the light looked really weird.
Yeah.
But they've probably fixed that.
Many things they haven't fixed. Let me tell you.
Ask Root. Why has this happened again?
So this is, I gained control in the cutscene, standard close replay stuff, but I got stuck on a boat. These are the ones that you're supposed to be racing. So this one is very simple. You're intended to take the east route here and race these guys to the cargo ship. Or the cargo boat or whatever. But instead of doing that, you can just go north. It's much faster. It's not a glitch or anything. It's just, you drive smarter than your opposition. And yeah, this is a much more direct route, so you beat them every single time.
What I would assume is that something like that probably already exists by someone else. So writing your own version.
And the second part of this mission is just another auto-scroller. So you're driving back with Lance, but Lance is the one doing the driving. So you just need to survive on the way back. So yeah, nothing really to discuss here.
So can you always get out of turret mode and do that, or is it only in that helicopter one?
No, you could do it now if you wanted to. The reason why I don't do it in this particular instance is because it doesn't actually save any time. Because, you know, the Phnom Penh mission, the fact that you come out of turret mode and you can kill those guys really fast, the mission progresses based on how fast you kill everyone. Whereas this mission is just how fast Lance can get to his destination. So you would actually lose time doing it in this one because obviously playing the replay and stuff takes time where the game isn't progressing, and then you wouldn't gain any time back by shooting everyone faster.
How long does it take to do the replay? It's just like less than half a second though, right?
Yeah, it's like less than half a second, but obviously, you know, there's no reason to do it, so I don't. We just do this the intended way. But yeah, if you wanted to, you could absolutely just nuke everything. The only thing that I do deliberately here is when I was shooting these boats behind me, I would shoot the driver and the gunner. Whereas this one, I only shoot the gunner and I leave the driver alive. Because if I were to shoot the driver, the boat would block us, and Lance is not a very good driver. His pathing is pretty shit, and there is a chance that he will hit the boat and like flip and kill us both, or get stuck, or you know, anything like that. So I only shoot the driver once we've gone past him.
And I'll get healed on Saya, so
Well, that time I didn't even shoot him at all. Even better.
kind of slow, but
Well, the sky looks nice there. It's much better graphics than the PS2, surely.
Yeah, it's yeah, quite a significant difference. So again, more close replay abuse. This is why we park the heli around the back, because we get into the heli during the cutscene, and we can start flying away.
So that's a cutscene that you're controlling.
it should be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's basically it's Lance and Tommy. They're talking about, you know, like, good job on the mission and, you know, whatever else, having a bit of banter back and forth. But we just immediately run away and don't talk to him.
They could fix this in one line of code if they noticed, if they knew at the time.
Yeah. I would even say, yeah, like an easy fix. I mean, I'm no developer, but you could probably check, like, does Tommy have control every X amount of frames or seconds or whatever? And if he does, take it away, you know? That's how I would do it. As someone who's not a developer, that's how I would fix it.
Shafted me enough to.
You could probably think of a much better way, I'm sure.
I don't know, but I don't think it did.
Well, probably just stop it in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, that's also an option. Yeah. Of course,
Well,
most of the ways that you would fix these particular glitches is by just removing replays, because they're so busted, they don't work properly.
Reverse off it.
And that's what they eventually did, and, you know, they fixed a lot of it.
That's what seemed to happen then.
Because the only reason this is, you know,
On it for like 10 years.
the only reason this is something that's possible is because of replays.
Completely stopped.
Sounds like a lazy fix, though, given that replays are such a cool idea. If they
Oh, yeah.
do just fix it.
Yeah, for sure.
But still,
The idea of just being able to press one key and, like, playing back 30 seconds of gameplay is awesome.
I'm not convinced.
Got that exactly going, yeah. You just
Yeah.
have to record every skeleton, every position of every skeleton, every frame into arrays, and then just put them back through, right?
Mhm.
And then hopefully turn off the human controls so that people
Yeah,
can't.
hopefully. So we're going to make another replay now. So we're going to remove the closed replay, and instead we're going to pick up one of a property buy icon for the Cherry Poppers asset, you know, the ice cream factory. So at this point in the story, we can't actually purchase assets. We haven't done the correct amount of missions yet, but we're just doing this because it's on the way. But buying properties inside of a replay have two benefits. And the first one is that when you purchase it, again, it plays a cutscene of you being at the asset, you know, as though you've just been there and purchased it. So it teleports you directly to the asset. The second one, and the most important one, is that it doesn't actually cost you any money because you haven't, like, bought it in the real world, if that makes sense.
So I guess that, to be honest.
Yeah, so you still need to have the money to purchase it. So if I had no money right now, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't let me purchase it. But as long as you have the money, it doesn't take any away from you. So back in the day when speedruns, before all the dupes and glitches and stuff, and, you know, people ran this game like 10, 15 years ago, you would have to grind money at the start of the game for, you know, 5 or 10 minutes to have enough to buy all of the assets. Because otherwise, you know, you'll run out of money very quickly. But this removed any, you know, necessary grinding, because you can buy all of the assets without actually needing to to grind any money. You know, the stuff that you get from the missions is more than enough to pay for any one individual asset. So,
yeah.
But this time I was kind of prepared for it, but still.
So we'll come back to this later after the mission Shakedown, which is 3 missions from now. So yeah, just keep that one in your back pocket for the time being.
So I do the same timing every time. Maybe it's just one of those things that sometimes happens if you do that timing.
So while this mission isn't anything particularly interesting, we basically do this intended. We just drive it straight to the garage. How do you feel about this so far? Is it what you expected? Is it more broken than you expected? Less broken?
Yeah, I expected it to be like less broken. Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
But then there wouldn't be that. It wouldn't happen on the PS2 one, right? Because there's no replays.
So there is a way that you can do a lot of these setups without replays. It's just quite a bit slower, but there is duping and instapassing and stuff on console.
I didn't even realize replays were a thing, so it's strange to see it.
Yeah.
But it's not that buggy. A lot of the time I thought you might be just running into the corner of a wall and then, suddenly you teleport miles away and then it crashes and then you come back and then you've got loads more money or something.
Well, speaking of running into walls, maybe hold that thought until the next mission. Because in the next mission, we're going to trivialize it by doing something quite similar.
You can almost break any game just by really going at it on a wall. I did it to Cyberpunk the other day at my mate's house. I was on top of a building you weren't meant to be on.
Yeah.
It's so easy.
Like personal record, like personal best.
So what I'm doing here is, when we talked about before about how the game is, the game is quite old and it can only allocate so much memory. So this is a strategy that lets you remove traffic from the game entirely. So obviously, the game is old. It can only allocate so much memory to the traffic in game, right? So if there are so many cars on the map that have spawned, then the game will spawn less traffic because it's already, allocated that amount to cars that already exist, right? So what you can do is you can shoot at a car, and if you shoot it enough, eventually the pedestrian will start getting out like that. And then if you play a replay during their animation of them exiting the car, they actually just get stuck in limbo forever. So this car, these glitch cars that you can see here, you can see like the NPC is just completely stuck. They lose all collision, the NPCs, and the cars will never despawn. So even if you run a mile away, even if you complete missions, these cars will still be stuck in the game's memory until you either close the game or load a save or something like that.
It's part of the replay, I guess, and it don't get ended properly, doesn't get deleted.
Yeah, more replay shenanigans. So again, what this means is that once you... Sorry, go ahead.
You can pile up like tons of cars and people that uses all the memory, so then nothing else, because they can't despawn, nothing else can spawn, so the streets are empty, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And as you can imagine, you saw earlier me getting knocked off my motorbike by an angry driver driving around. This removes like a lot of randomness from the run, because there's no traffic, so there's no potential to fall off unless you hit a tree or something. But if you hit a tree, it's your fault. If you hit a car that's like randomly driving around, you could argue that it's not entirely your fault, essentially. So once you've glitched around 3 or 4 cars, as you can see, there's no more traffic on the map. And that will be the case for the rest of the run.
From a 54-54 to a 54.
Interesting how they turn the colliders off the people too.
That was like the second day of coming back.
What's that, sorry?
You said that the people are no longer collidable, right, during that time?
Yeah, I'm not actually sure why that's the case. The cars still have collision. You can actually drive them if you want to.
If you want some
but yeah, the pedestrians have no collisions whatsoever. You can, they're just like a ghost.
Are the cars invincible when you drive them or not?
No, so you can still blow them up if you want to. And actually, if you blow them up, eventually they despawn. But a fun little thing is because the door is like glitched, once you get into the car, you can't exit it anymore. Because you can't like close the door to then open it again, to exit. The door is stuck in like a weird buggy part. So, yeah.
My reaction is hilarious.
Yeah. Probably because the doors are like detachable.
Yeah.
They don't need to be once they've been kind of, bugged out.
For the rest of the game.
Yeah, someone said in my chat, because peds don't have collision when they're getting in and out of the car, which makes sense. So they're stuck in that state, so they don't have collision at all.
I think I pressed it
right, yeah, because the animation takes over. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
So I overwrote my
Yeah, it's waiting for the animation to end, but it never does.
F2 one,
yeah.
F3 one. Thank God. So I lost like half a second here because I couldn't do the.
So, fun fact: we talk about playing this game as a kid, or in your case a university student. Back in the day, this is the mission that I got stuck on PS2. I never completed this mission when I played it as a kid. It's the one where you save Lance from the scrapyard and you have to fight through all the enemies.
Really bad. Like as you can see,
this mission is entirely trivialized by just using a helicopter. Because instead of going into the regular entrance and fighting all your way through, you can just fly over everything with a helicopter. And then grab Lance and just get out again without having to fight almost anyone. So the game only checks for one person who stood right next to Lance being dead. As soon as he's dead and you're stood, where Lance is, you can start the cutscene. So I kill that guy and then start the cutscene right away. Just run through everyone.
Oh, they're not even attacking.
No, not in a cutscene. Yeah, they're not aggressive to you in cutscenes. They will start shooting me immediately after, so this is quite risky. You can die, Lance can die, but it's pretty consistent, and it's very fast just running through.
And the run isn't even that good, but just the fact that
you see, I'm taking a deliberate path so Lance doesn't get stuck on the way back as well. Because he just follows you blindly,
Lance, come on.
He's a bit slow here, usually he's a bit faster, but sometimes he can get stuck on things. Yeah, we just fly him to the hospital. Usually when you leave the scrapyard through regular means, driving out, the game spawns a lot of guys, Diaz's goons, that come and fight you. But because we fly straight over the trigger, we never spawn them until we get to here.
It's not really a coincidence that I'm
so that's the line there saying that Diaz's goons are after you, but we're already at the hospital, so. And we're going to do a small little thing here. We're going to get out of the helicopter and get back in again. That's because this game has two different ways that it views vehicles. So there are mission vehicles that obviously, they spawn when you start a mission. They might be used as a getaway vehicle or something like that. And then once the mission is done, the game will get rid of the vehicles, right? Because it doesn't need them anymore. It's part of the mission script, and you clean up the mission script at the end of the mission when you pass or fail it, and it despawns everything, right? So when you use your own vehicle for a mission, sometimes the game will mark it as a mission vehicle. So in this particular instance, because I dropped off Lance with the helicopter, the game marks the helicopter as a mission vehicle. So if I were to leave this helicopter for too long without re-entering it, the game would despawn it because it's classed as the mission cleanup. It'd be part of mission cleanup. But re-entering it marks it as Tommy's personal vehicle again. So then it doesn't despawn. So we keep the helicopter through this. Because again, helicopters are very fast. You can fly around everywhere very quick.
Why he's getting stuck all the time. Pretty sure it's my fault.
There's a guy under the water somewhere, isn't there, with concrete boots on or something?
Yeah, there's a couple, I think, maybe two or three in the ocean. I used to sometimes do bingo, where you'd have to do complete goals in Vice City with a bingo sheet, and a lot of them were finding the different Easter eggs. So there's the Russian politician or whatever he is inside the ammunition. There's the penis on the hotel with the lights. It forms a penis. There's the actual physical Easter egg that you can find that says Happy Easter. There's a bunch of different stuff that you can find. Really cool stuff. So you remember when you said that you can just do really silly things by just running into a wall?
Yeah. He's going to appear up on another floor, yeah. Whoa.
Even better, you just clip straight into the mansion. So obviously this is the mission where we take over Diaz's mansion, right? So usually the front door is locked and you have to go all the way around the side and fight through a bunch of guys. And the game even tells you, the front door is locked. You should try another way. But if you run into that particular bit of geometry there, you can just run right through. And because the game never expects you to, miss the triggers where we have like a showdown with Diaz, there's cutscenes and stuff. The game never activates Diaz's AI, so they just spawn him in his office, just chilling there. So you can actually kill him without having to actually fight him. Usually there would be a trigger downstairs where you'd, where they activate his AI and everything, but we never hit that, so we can just kill him just like that.
Yeah, his office isn't even spawned in, is it?
Yeah, there's nothing. Because we never actually technically hit the trigger to load the interior of the mansion. All the collision is there, but it's not, visually there, right? So that's what we call the interior and exterior world. So it doesn't load the interior world. So it's all just, but it's all there. That's the wall that we kill him through. And then we just need to hit the trigger for the end of the mission because we need to trigger... I don't know exactly how it works, but basically there's 2 triggers that you need to have, right? So you need to kill Diaz, and you also need to trigger the showdown with him. So we just do it in backwards order. So we kill him first, and then we trigger the showdown, but because he's already dead, the mission just passes, basically. It's kind of a weird one. Yeah, very, very trivial mission by just running at a wall.
And it's only 33 minutes in.
Yeah. And we're more than halfway through the game. So I was speaking before about randomness in Vice City. There's very little randomness in this run. There's a lot of stuff that we do to make it as consistent as possible. But this mission where you have to go to the mall and you have to shoot down the windows, this is one of the only true amounts of random number generation, or RNG, as we call it, in this. So the first bullet when you shoot the window, it never breaks it. But afterwards, there's I always forget, it's either 20 or 25% chance that you'll break the window afterwards. So you could, in theory, be shooting, 1,000 bullets at this and you'd never break it if you're unlucky enough. So you can lose quite a lot of time here to luck. And you'll see there as well, I'm actually playing a replay because when you play a replay and end it, it actually reloads your gun for free without having to reload it. So you see I'm just able to shoot infinitely, basically. More replay abuse. Another reason you can add to the portfolio of why you should remove the replays. Or at least fix them. Here there's more windows up top, so we just we throw grenades up there to blow them up. Because explosives, they always blow up first time. There's no randomness there.
I just had a feeling that this guy was going to screw me. These windows are terrible. That second one on the right side.
That's it, mission done.
Bad. The worst I've seen in a while.
So, this section is a bit complicated. So what we're going to do is, how we talked about before about the Cherry Poppers ice cream mission, the fact that you can teleport to it by picking it up in the replay. We're going to enter this this car showroom in Furnace in the mall, and then we're going to deliberately teleport to the Cherry Poppers asset. So we need to purchase Cherry Poppers anyway, because we need to complete that asset for the run. And also, we need to go to Starfish Island for the next mission, so it makes sense to teleport there from the mall, because the mall's quite far away, whereas Cherry Poppers is only 1 street away from Starfish Island. But also, there's a very particular reason why we do it inside of the mall. In the next mission, Copland, you have to plant a bomb inside the mall. And if the game ever realizes that you're inside the mall without a cop uniform, it gives you an instant 5-star wanted level. And that really benefits us because we teleported out of the mall, the game never thinks that we left it because we never went through the door, which is the check, right? So this whole time, the game is still playing the mall music and everything, and it's going to put us in the interior world, as you'll see in a second. And when you start Copland, you actually need to get a wanted level to lure some cops into a garage. And, of course, as we start Copland, the game sees that we're in the mall, technically speaking, and realizes that we don't have a cop uniform on, so it actually gives us an instant wanted level, so we don't have to go and get it ourselves. So yeah, there's 3 reasons why this teleport is very good for the speedrun.
Why does it give you 5-star just because you're in the cop uniform on?
Yeah, it's because the game still thinks you're in the mall, and during the mission it's scripted, so if you're in the mall without a cop uniform during the mission, you'll get a 5-star wanted level.
Oh, right.
The lore-wise, obviously the mall is like on lockdown because of the fact that somebody tried to plant a bomb there, one of your people. So you need to go in and infiltrate it as cops. So you steal some uniforms from some police officers, and then you go and infiltrate it. But if you just go into the mall without the cop uniforms, they realize it's you, and then the police get very angry at you. But yeah, as you can see here, this is basically the opposite. So the game is still loading the interior world because it still thinks you're in the mall. So we have to drive essentially blind back to Starfish Island. There's no roads or anything.
You have to make your shots count.
I don't know how you can do that, but yeah, that's cool.
A lot of practice. It's the short answer. I use that adrenaline pill as a reference where to stop, because it's right next to the doors.
There is still some stuff drawing which doesn't need to draw by the looks of it. It's funny.
Yeah, it is weird. There's some, like, shrubbery and some parts of roads and stuff that still get drawn in. I'm not entirely sure as to why that is, but yeah.
It's just someone forgot to tag them up or whatever.
Yeah. So we were speaking earlier about Tommy's personal vehicles and, mission vehicles and stuff like that. It's very important that we get in this same Infernus. We don't get in another car. Because if we did, our helicopter that we left at the mall would despawn. Because, again, the game has like limitations on what you can have. And you can only have 2 personal vehicles at any one time. So if you were to have, let's say, vehicle A and vehicle B, and then you entered vehicle C, vehicle A would despawn. Because, it only remembers the last 2 that you entered. So we're very deliberately entering only a small amount of vehicles to keep our helicopter at the mall. So then once we plant the bomb during Copland, we can fly back straight away without having to drive back and deal with the police and stuff. Because, yeah, driving back with 5 stars is very scary.
There's a lot of thought put into this. You must be falling asleep at night and thinking, I could do this a bit quicker, actually.
Yeah, very much so. So this cutscene, as you'll see when the cutscene plays, there's 2 guys that spawn out of here with PCJs, and you have to kill them to pass the mission. Usually, if you were to just do this mission normally, you would actually be forced to run towards their position, so you wouldn't be in a position to kill them very quickly. But if you're crouched, the game can't actually move you, because you can't move when crouched, unless you physically uncrouch yourself by like jumping or something. So yeah, so the game tries to like force movement upon you, but because you're crouched, it just doesn't work. So we can line ourselves up in a very particular position to snipe these guys immediately as soon as they drive, or before they drive away.
It's a pretty blatant bug as well. Being able to just crouch and that stops you being able to be
Yeah,
moved.
exactly. It's a very, very big oversight there. Because you can do that in a lot of cutscenes too. You can just crouch prematurely and it just messes up the whole thing.
Everything before the mission.
Having said that, I never found any of these bugs, even when I was working on it.
Well, I mean, you're not a QA tester, right? You're not paid to find these things.
Yeah.
You're paid to write code. So.
And we did have a lot of testers, actually.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean the QA team, as far as I know, at least by the credits, it's pretty massive. So yeah, we'll take a phone call here, and as you'll see, when I start this mission, I'm going to immediately get a 5-star wanted level straight away, which is quite scary. I'm making a replay over the save icon, where you can save your game here. And this is another, again, broken replay thing. So if you pick up a save icon, obviously the game never expects you to be away from the save icon, because they never expect you to pick it up in a replay. The game teleports you as long as you're in the same district. So as long as you're in like downtown, and if you're in downtown and the pickup is in Vice Point, it doesn't work. But as soon as you enter Vice Point, it will trigger that teleport, if that makes sense, because you're in the same district or area as the save pickup. So we're going to abuse that later by basically like buffering a save warp where we teleport back to the mansion for the final mission. So we'll talk more about that later. But yeah, that's the reason why I'm running into the mansion now, just to make a replay for later. Yeah, you'll see we instantly get 5 stars here, and we've got to drive to the garage with the FBI and stuff on us, which is very scary. But the bright side is that because we glitch so much traffic, there aren't that many cop spawns, because, you know, for the same reason, the game can only allocate so much memory to cops as well, so it's a lot less scary than usual.
There's no one around, considering you got 5 stars?
Yeah, there's a couple of roadblocks, but very easy to dodge. That's a scripted one that we talked about all the way at the start, scripted cop spawns. So yeah, this can go very wrong if you're unlucky enough, but usually it's fine. And then this is where we steal the cop uniforms that we need.
Oh, yeah. Says something like, they're tight around the crotch, though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, this isn't any, like, particularly, like, egregious bug, but, you know how usually if you have a follower with you, such as Lance, for example, you would need to, like, not be too far away from them, otherwise the game would, like, you know, say, hey, go back and get Lance, and you can't progress without him. The game does do that with Lance in this particular scenario, but you can just progress the mission without him. So the marker at the mall is still there, regardless of whether you take Lance with you or not. So we just abandon Lance at the garage, and the game doesn't care. So you see, like, the marker is there for the mall, and then when it says, hey, go back and get Lance, it tells you the marker is here for Lance. But if you just ignore that, you can just go to the mall anyway without him, and he'll just teleport to you later on.
He's chasing you right now.
Yeah, he just eventually gets bored and gives up, but then, yeah. So, for the same reason as before, because the game, you know, was angry at us for the same reason it gave us a 5-star wanted level, it thinks that we were in the mall without a cop uniform. And the 2 guards who are defending the cafe that we're planting the bomb in, they're aggressive towards us. So as soon as we enter the mall here, they're actually going to shoot us. So that's why we take the motorbike in, because the motorbike takes a lot of the damage for us. Otherwise, we'd get, like, instantly killed here. So you'll see it as we go in. We get shot to shit, but we survive because of the bike. Also, we have to enter the mall twice because we're technically leaving the mall the first time, and then we're re-entering it. And then, yeah, Lance teleports to us now. Because the game's like, oh, wait, Lance isn't here. And teleports him there. And then, yeah, because we did all that, we get the helicopter back. Lance is being a pain here. Usually he would get in the helicopter with you straight away, but he just clips through a wall, you know? Classic Vice City.
Yeah. Oh, you're going to leave him again?
I would if I could, but the final trigger requires you to have him with you, sadly. But yeah, so this would usually be a very horrible drive back with 5 stars, but because we have the helicopter, we can just fly straight over the golf course back to Starfish Island. And now begins the very fun part. So this is where we skip the second half of the game, basically. You know how, like, the first half of the game is you taking over Diaz's mansion, figuring out who ambushed the deal and all that kind of stuff. And then the second part is you buying the assets and doing all of their missions, right?
Yeah.
We're not going to do any of that. we're going to skip right to the end of the game, basically.
20 seconds now.
It's going to take a lot of explaining, and I'll do my best, but we'll sort of pause and we'll rewind and stuff as we go. So, I mentioned before about how, I guess, just so we're all on the same page, the way you complete the game at this point is you have to complete 2 mandatory assets, which is, the first one is the Vassetti Estate missions, which we just did with Barbaro and Copland, yeah? The second one is the Printworks, because the second to last mission actually starts at the Printworks, so, you know, as far as the game's concerned, narratively speaking, you need to do the Printworks, because Otherwise, how would that mission make any sense in terms of the story, right? So you have to complete these 2 no matter what. And then you have to complete 5 other assets of your choice. So you can complete like the taxi cab missions, the Kaufman cab missions, the film porn studio missions, the Malibu club missions, the pole position, the strip club that we went to right at the start of the game. Anything like that. You can do as many as you like, as long as you complete 5 or more. And then once you've got 5 or more assets and the 2 mandatory ones, then you unlock the 2 final missions of the game. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I didn't realize that. I thought you had to do everything.
A lot of people do. It's a very common misconception. A lot of people think that you have to do like the Malibu Club missions or stuff like that, but no, you don't. So the way the game checks what assets you've completed, it doesn't check it in a very good way. So instead of checking has the player completed X asset and, yes or no or anything like that, the way it checks is simply when you complete an asset, it adds 1 to a counter. And once the counter hits this number, then you unlock the set amount of missions. So basically the game is just checking for, have you completed these 2 mandatory assets? And is the completed asset at 7 or more, right? Because it needs to be 2 that you've done mandatory, and then plus the 5 of your choice. So, in theory, you would never be able to complete the same asset several times. But if you could... Yeah, but if you see where I'm going with this, right? Yeah. So if you could, you would just keep adding 1 onto that counter over and over again until the game goes, hey, you've completed a certain amount of assets. Here's the final 2 missions. So that is already game-breaking in itself. But also, we're going to combine that with the fact that the particular asset mission that we're going to do, the Cherry Poppers ice cream, which is why we bought it earlier, it only has 1 mission. And we're going to Instapass it. So we were talking earlier about how certain glitches, if you start certain missions at certain times, you can actually Instapass missions. And basically what that means is, it's what it says on the tin. You start the mission and it instantly passes, right? So the way Instapasses work at a code level is very complicated. And as I say, I'm not a developer. I'm not really a coder or anything. So I'm not going to try and bullshit you and pretend I know more than a developer. I don't have a clue. But for the sake of dumbing it down for my sake rather than your sake, essentially how it works is that you start mission A, and then you start mission B while mission A is running, and you instantly pass mission B. And the reason for that is because when you start mission B with mission A running, it jumps to a certain part of missions B's script. And that's, in this particular instance, it's going to be the part where it's completed, right? So the offsets in the code have to line up in a very specific way. If you just do this randomly, like if you start, taxi driver while spilling the beans is running, you'll just crash the game. 9 times out of 10, you'll just crash the game because the game isn't expecting the script to jump around like this. But yeah, if you do it in very particular circumstances, you will just complete missions as soon as you start them. And that's what we're going to do. So we are going to instantly pass the Cherry Poppers ice cream asset 5 times very quickly. And then the game is going to go, you've completed 5 assets, and you've done the other 2 mandatory assets. Here's the end of the game. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
Okay, I'm glad I've done a good job, because that's not easy to explain. Especially, obviously it's different with you because you're familiar with Vice City mechanics and stuff like that. But if you explain that to somebody who's never played Vice City before, it's like almost impossible to, to explain how any of this stuff works. So,
well, most games work pretty similar, really. Obviously, different tricks you can do.
Yeah. So, as a quick little preload before we get into the nitty gritty, you see there when I jumped and you see I play the mansion replay that I said earlier. That's what I was talking about. So I've basically buffered the fact that I'm going to teleport to the mansion the next time I enter that district. So that'll be all the way at the end of the game. And all that does is it just makes it so the final mission starts at the mansion, where you have to showdown with Lance and Sunny. As soon as I get to the mansion, I'll teleport right to where the mission is. So you'll see that later on.
Yeah. So basically the replay is just a teleporter in many ways.
Yeah, essentially. You can teleport in so many different ways. It's crazy. Because the game obviously expects you to be physically where that is, where the save marker is or where the asset or anything is. Okay, so I made a replay over a Katana Rampage. Very similar to the Chainsaw one at the start of the game. The Katana Rampage is here. I was on a phone call, so the Rampage isn't there because you're on mission 1 while you're taking a phone call. You can't start missions or anything like that. Rampages are included. And then I did another man dupe here. So again, just to sort of reiterate, man duping is where you abuse the game's cycles to start two things at the same time, but it's essentially random because of the fact that you can't control the cycles of the game. So again, at this point I'm 40 minutes in. If I mess this up by even a matter of frames, the run's dead, basically. So I would have to restart the entire run from scratch. So, yeah. It's not easy. Yeah.
So, you get a really good score like Tony Hawk's, and you're like, oh, I'll do this, I'll do that. Oh, I've just ruined it.
Yeah, exactly. So, in this particular instance, I'm actually using the fact that I'm purchasing the Printworks as my sort of, other mission, if that makes sense. Because when the script ends of buying a property, it actually sets you on mission 0 again, the same as ending a mission would. So once the phone call finishes, I press to buy the Printworks and I play the Rampage at the same time. And as you can see, it's saying, you've purchased the Printworks, good job, and the Rampage is running. So that's exactly what you want. And then we start the mission and off we go. So this is essentially like a huge setup to do the Instapassing that I was talking about before. But we'll do it sort of play by play. So that replay that I make here is over the save icon of the Printworks. We're going to use that to teleport back and forth during missions. That's all there is to it. We're just going to use it as like because all the missions for the Printworks end at the Printworks. So once we've done whatever we need to do, we can just teleport back rather than driving back. Okay. And this is the only time, I don't know whoever scripted this mission, but you can actually take a cab to the Malibu. This is never used again, ever. This is the only time it's ever used in the game. So whoever coded that, just, yeah.
I was meant to have a voice outside the Malibu Club. I don't know, I've never heard it in the game, but I remember recording it.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that, right? Yeah, you were supposed to have a pedestrian voiceover that they never ended up implementing.
Yeah, right. And then if he runs over a certain pedestrian, you're meant to hear my voice. It was supposed to be a kind of Bruce Tanner reference, I think.
Yeah.
Made in Reflections, where I'm in Newcastle, where I'm from.
There is a chance that it might be, the actual voice line might still have been recorded and actually in the game files. There's a chance we might be able to dig it up for you.
It would be interesting.
Yeah. I don't know if they included them all, but just hid them the same way they did with the credits. I'm not sure. I'd have to check, but I can certainly look for you.
I know that there was CDs full of outtakes, and I know the guy who's got them.
Yeah.
And all the stuff that was cut and everything, but I presume they wouldn't be stupid enough to leave in like audio files that would take up valuable space.
Yeah, I mean, probably not. But you never know. Wishful thinking, right?
Yes. I'd love to hear it again.
Yeah. Yeah, so this mission, we're just we're intimidating a person up at the top of the ship there. And there's usually infinite spawning guys, but we can just sprint through them. And we also just jump off the ship immediately as soon as we gain control again. And so the way that we're going to manipulate the on-mission variable here back and forth is we're actually going to use a phone call. So phone calls work exactly the same way as Rampages. When your phone is ringing or you're actually taking a phone call, the dialogue is playing, you're on mission 1. And as soon as it ends, you cancel the phone call or you stop talking to whoever you're talking to, then it sets you on mission 0 again, right?
Yeah.
So in order for your phone to ring, you need to not have a wanted level. So on the way back to completing this mission, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to remove these 2 stars by collecting 2 cop bribes. Because we need our phone to ring as we finish the mission. Now, obviously, you were never intended to receive phone calls during missions anyway. But yeah, that's just the point that we're at now in this game. So yeah, so as soon as we get off our bike here, we're going to get a phone call. So we're going to collect the bribe. We're going to pick up the save icon, which teleports us back to the Printworks. So This is the first like real example that you see of teleporting with the save icon. It just teleports you back to like, as though you picked up the icon in real time.
Yeah.
So we teleport back, and then as soon as we get off our bike, our phone rings. As you can see here, it's saying, you need to answer your phone. And then, so we've finished the mission with the phone call running, but the phone is still ringing in the background, even though you can't hear it. And it's what we call an on mission 0 phone call. So we can still start missions and stuff while this phone call is running, because it hasn't set that flag, if that makes sense. Like, the phone is still ringing in real time, but because we passed spilling the beans, it set our on mission flag to 0, so we can start other missions again, even though the phone call is still ringing.
Where the fuck did I get that from?
So why does the phone call need to be still?
So the reason why it needs to be ringing is because we want to start this mission, hit the courier, and we need to be able to go on mission 0 somehow. So we need to basically have the mission running, but be in free roam mode. And the reason for that is because this is the key combination for the Instapass. So if you start the Cherry Poppers ice cream mission by entering the van, the ice cream van, while Hit the Courier is running, on the Haitian-friendly version of the game, you will instantly pass the Cherry Poppers asset every single time you do it. So that's what that entire setup was for. It was just so we could have a phone call inside of this mission. Because as soon as we cancel the phone call, we go on mission 0. As you can see, we've got all these mission markers and stuff that we can do. But we're not going to do any of those because we're just going to go and enter the ice cream van. And yeah, so once you sort of have this, your head wrapped around this, it might be a bit tricky, but the rest of it is very simple. All that we do is we just get in the van, that instantly passes the ice cream mission, and then we just teleport back and do it again. And we do that 5 times. As you can see, the fade happens. I'll show you it again in real time. So this fade to black here is the mission passing for the ice cream asset, and then we just start Hit the Courier again, and we just rinse and repeat. So that's one asset completed.
How many missions is there for the ice cream thing?
Just this one. So all that you have to do is you have to get in the van and deliver 50 ice creams. That's the only mission that you have to do. So that's why we use this one, is because obviously if you Instapass that one mission, then you get the entire asset every single time you do it.
Can you do that, 5 times?
Yeah, 5 times exactly. Whereas if you did the Malibu missions, for example, you would have to like instantly complete, several different missions to, do this in the same amount of time. Yeah.
Go meet Ken Paul and all that.
Yeah, exactly. Good old Danny Dyer. The amount of people that say I sound like Danny Dyer, it's such an insult. Like, I live at the opposite side of the country, I
don't like him at all.
Yeah. It's like me saying to an American who's from like Texas, "Oh, you sound like you're from Oregon." It's complete opposite side of the country.
I've heard people say, like my mates from Canada will be like, "Oh, you sound like Lister from Red Dwarf." I'm like, I don't sound anything like Lister.
Yeah. Very strange. Yeah, this is I'm not sure which one this is. It's actually, believe it, with everything else going on in the game, it's actually important to actually count how many assets you do, because obviously if you do too many, then it's a waste of time. And if you do too little, then you won't unlock the final missions. So, yeah. So now we've started Hit the Courier for the 6th time, so we've done all the 5 Instapasses, and we're just going to actually complete Hit the Courier this time. Because obviously this is part of the print works, so we need to finish the print works. That's the last thing that we need to do to unlock the 2 final missions, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Okay. So we're still carrying the phone call into the mission. And the simple reason for this is that, as we talked about before, whenever you're in a cutscene, or in this case, whenever you're on a phone call, aggressive NPCs don't attack you. So during this mission, usually you would have to fight your way through the docks and grab a briefcase and then come all the way back. And what makes the mission difficult is the fact that, if you just walked in, you would get destroyed because they all have like insanely powerful guns. But if you were to somehow smuggle a phone call into the mission, we can just answer the phone call, run in, run out. Problem solved.
Oh, that's great.
And it also just so happens, because obviously we're not doing like a bunch of different missions, we're skipping a lot of them. We have a lot of phone calls to take because we have to answer certain phone calls to unlock the final mission. You know, if you were to just ignore the phone calls, then you would have to answer them all at the end. And then, you know, the final phone call that comes in would be from Lance, and that's to unlock the final mission. So
yeah. So you can't get on a bike while you're on a call.
Yeah, so if you were to usually be answering a phone call the intended way, you can't enter vehicles. Like if you press F to enter a vehicle, it doesn't do anything. If you have a glitched phone call where you can sprint and stuff like that we talked about before, if you press F during the phone call, it will actually skip the phone call. And that sounds great, right? Because we want to skip phone calls because that's fast. You know, it's a speedrun. We're trying to beat the game as fast as possible. The problem is it doesn't actually skip the call. It just cancels it. So the next time your phone rings, it'll be the same call that you just answered, if that makes sense. So yeah. So we need to listen to the entire call in its entirety. But there is one big exception here. And that is, if you play two dialogue lines over each other, the one that you play second will overwrite the first one, if that makes sense. So we need to take two quite long phone calls from Lance where he starts like bitching about us and saying that, you know, we're not treating him properly and blah, 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 blah. And those lines that keep playing over and over again are extremely long. They're extremely, you know, he speaks very slowly and they have a long back and forth. But when you enter the docks, every single time you go near this NPC that we're going to see in a second, she says, "Private business, you're not welcome." And that is a much shorter dialogue line. So what I'm doing is I'm on the phone call with Lance, but every single time a new dialogue line starts, I'm just triggering her shorter line. And what that does is it just overwrites the dialogue lines over and over again. But once you finish the call, it still counts as completed because the game still thinks that you're listening to the audio of Lance.
You'd think that would happen too often all the time. The call would be like cutting off when you're playing it. I've never heard that happen.
So it doesn't happen with like random NPC dialogue lines and stuff. It's only, I believe, like scripted ones, if that makes sense. Yeah. So if you were just like walking around on the phone and a pedestrian says something, it doesn't overwrite it. It's only like ones from the mission script, I believe. I might be wrong with that, but I'm 60% certain, and that's good enough for me. So essentially what we're doing is we're using this time while the helicopter comes down, because the helicopter has the briefcase that we need to get. We're using this time to basically answer a load of phone calls that we would usually have to sit and listen to, which are very long, but we're just answering them while we're, waiting for the helicopter to come down, and we're like, abusing the dialogue line being overwritten. So this is phone call number 2. We're just in time for the helicopter, so we just kill the lady. And as you can see, none of these people attack you. Usually you would get shot to shit by these ladies. And we just do the same thing, just play the dialogue line a few times, and off we go. And we also play a save replay there to teleport back. But again, we don't teleport straight away, because Printworks is in Little Havana, and we're currently in Viceport. But as soon as we get to this place, which puts us in Little Havana, we teleport straight away. And that's it. So that's the Printworks missions completed. So now, as far as the game is concerned, we've completed the Printworks, we've completed Copland, so we've completed the Vassetti Estate, and we've completed 5 assets of our choice. So, final 2 missions of the game.
It's unbelievable.
And do you want to know the funniest part about all this?
Yep.
If this mission wasn't bugged, this wouldn't work. So, this next mission is the Mafia is coming, because Sonny's really pissed off at you from taking over the world without him, basically. And they come and they tax all of your assets. Now, we only have 1 asset. And usually, in the mission's cutscene, the guys would drive and they would start taxing it in the cutscene, so you wouldn't be able to do anything about it. If that happens, then you would just fail the mission, because the mission fails when you run out of taxable assets. You know, you've got nothing else to give. That's mission failed. But there just happens to be a very specific bug in this mission where if the guys in the cutscene that we'll see in a second, if they don't get interrupted, so their pathing is normal, they get stuck. So you see here, they get stuck right here, and they don't go and tax the asset like they're intended to. They're intended to get off the bike and go and fail the mission. And if this mission was coded properly, these two guys would get off the bike. Get off the bike right while we're just watching them and go here, and the mission would fail. But it just so happens, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I feel like this is so important. Yeah, this mission is bugged, and these guys don't do that. They just get stuck. All three of them. All three sets of them.
Cause them to get stuck?
What? Sorry?
How do you cause them to get stuck? Like, why don't they get off the bike?
We don't do anything. They're just stuck by default. That's just part of the game. These guys just don't do their jobs. And if they did, this entire route would not work.
Does it always happen, or just now and again?
No, every single time. The only thing that makes them do their job correctly is if a car spawns in this cutscene and it interrupts their pathing, then they go to the correct place.
That is a terrible bug. I don't even remember this mission.
So, again, because of the fact that we remove all the traffic, there is pretty much zero chance of traffic spawning, so they always get stuck. And
I see. So,
go ahead.
That they would normally have maneuvered around one car and then they'd kick into real life.
Exactly.
Or action.
Yeah, but the mission just by default is bugged, and they don't unless they see a car.
It's interesting.
So, these particular guys are in a really nice position to get shot through the wall. So, sniper rifle bullets can go through walls in this game.
Really?
I forget the exact reason why. I think it's like, something to do with the bullets, like the collision not taking into effect quickly enough. So if you have a perfect lineup, you can actually just shoot them through the wall. So instead of driving to the Cherry Popper's asset and shooting them, we can just shoot them through the wall here with a very specific lineup. I'm just playing replays to instantly reload the sniper rifle, and as you can see, they're dead. They're gone. This is the text saying, kill the second set.
Bullets are too quick, or the colliders are too thin, but I guess most of the colliders in this game are probably just planes, if I remember rightly. Can't really.
So Nick said they forgot to stop bullets when they hit objects or vehicles, so there you go. So it passes through everything because of an oversight.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so it's just they simply forgot to make it so the sniper rifle bullets actually stop when they hit something. So there you go.
You wouldn't know either way, would you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it means that we can shoot these guys through the wall, and it's a very cool looking strat.
Oh, so the dot goes red, doesn't it, when you're targeting someone? So
these are just by default. As soon as you start the mission, you see they're just these are just always this color, no matter what.
So that red dot is always red.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think the game has like a certain color code for certain things. Like the pink markers for like objectives and stuff like that. This pink marker is actually from Hit the Courier. Because of the fact that we messed around with that mission earlier, there's still a leftover marker there. That's also just a bug. Yeah. But yeah, so the blips are always the same color. Once they're spawned in, they're set at a certain color, and that doesn't change. So the next two sets of guys, we actually don't wait for them to pull up at Cherry Poppers. If they would get stuck exactly the same way. But we actually, obviously, it's faster to go and meet them. So they spawn all the way at the north point of downtown, and we just meet them in the middle, essentially, and snipe them.
Fuck you.
So we just wait for them to come, and we just shoot them off their bikes.
Nice.
And the same for the third one.
At the 50-minute mark, rather than starting the mission at the 49-minute mark.
These snipes are they're always really scary because obviously if you mess them up, it's like right at the end of the game, you've done all the hard stuff. So your hands are usually like sweating at this point, you know, getting nervous.
Another feeling.
So it's time for the final mission. As soon as we enter Starfish, we're going to take a phone call from Lance, which unlocks the final mission. And then we're going to teleport straight to the island. The mansion, sorry. You can see we walk in here, and as soon as we get into the Starfish Island district, we teleport straight to the marker. Like that.
How do you know which replay you're picking? Are they on the F keys or something?
Yeah, so the way it works is F1 plays around the last 30 seconds or so. It's like, you know, the instant replay feature. F2 saves the replay, and F3 plays back the saved replay. So we basically use F3 to play back the replay that we saved previously.
Right.
So we always know what replay is in like the cache, if that makes sense. Because it's always the same one. It's just whichever one you saved previously.
This is the last mission, yeah?
Yeah, it's the last mission. And so, really interesting thing about this last mission. So obviously this is like the Scarface, you know, showdown, right? You stand on top of the stairs and a load of goons spawn and you have to fight them until the next, you know, objective. But if you don't move your mouse from when the mission starts, nobody spawns. So you can just sit and wait. So as you can see, when I start the mission, I just skip the cutscene, and I don't move my camera at all.
Imagine if I'd have done that last time.
And you can just stand here, and nothing spawns.
Hardest trick in the game.
What?
Scrolling.
I have no idea how that works, but it works.
Doesn't even make sense, that.
So the way this mission works is it's on a timer again. When you start the mission, 60 seconds from mission start is when Lance spawns, and you have to kill Lance. And then 120 seconds from when you started the mission, Sunny spawns. And once you kill Sunny, that's the end of the game. And obviously Sunny only spawns when Lance is dead, I should say. So
You have to just wait right now.
Yeah, so we're literally just waiting. Yeah, there's nothing to
It's
this.
frustrating after all those time savings you've got now. Now you just have to waste loads of time waiting.
Yeah. There are things that you can technically do that we've discovered like since this run, where you can kill Sunny in the cutscene, and you can set up for that while, you know, you do the waiting time. In 100% runs, you actually collect like, you know, hidden packages and stuff around the map while you're waiting for this. Yeah, but so usually you would Lance would like teleport away at this point. You know, he runs away and teleports up to the roof, and you have the final stand with him there. But if you're quick enough, you can actually just kill him instantly and skip this entire segment as well. So you'll see as soon as I gain control, I sprint and I punch him, which staggers him, and then I just chainsaw him instantly and kill him. Oh, well, I actually mess it up apparently in this, but so it doesn't actually lose any time because, as I say, the mission is on a timer anyway. We still have to wait another 60 seconds before Sunny spawns. So as long as I kill him and I'm back at the top of the stairs before that 60 seconds is up, then it doesn't lose any time, so it doesn't matter. But it looks cool. Killing him early. Yeah, so now you can see the guys are actually spawning because I've moved my camera.
Look at all these guys waiting for me.
So, yeah, just... You can do whatever you want during this time. You can kill guys if you want to. Doesn't matter.
Waiting to say GG at the end.
And you just need to wait for Sunny to spawn.
First person to say GG.
Spawn any second. There he is. And then the final fight is very anticlimactic because you just kill him in like 2 seconds.
Yeah, I remember thinking that.
That's it. He's dead. And that's it. That's the end of the run. It's the end of the game.
That's it. I don't want to play this category anymore. That's
Amazing. 53 minutes and 30 seconds. Is that it?
53:30. Yeah.
That's insane.
Start
if
to
you worked
finish.
at Rockstar as a play tester he did that back in the day, I don't know what they would do. They'd be angry. They'd be like, man, we just spent all this money and time and you just wrecked it.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's no cheats, no mods, no nothing. It's unmodified game, no cheat codes, start to finish.
I guess it's 21 years of collaborative effort of people trying to work it out.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this even nowadays, like people are finding new strategies to complete these missions quickly. Like it's the community is huge of people who just love these games. Like they still want to keep them alive. This is why I started speedrunning Vice City as well, because I loved the game so much and I wanted a reason to keep playing it all these years later, And yeah, this is what it's done for me. Allowed me to enjoy it. So, even 20 years later.
Well, when I played it as an actual consumer, I'm sure it took me like over 2 years to finish because most of the time we're just, exploring and attacking cops and stuff. But like half the time I didn't even do the missions.
Yeah.
Oh, that was absolutely amazing. Loved that.
Thank you. Look, I'm glad you enjoyed, and I'm glad I could teach you something. That's what I said at the start, right? Like even if I can teach you just one thing.
Yeah, well, if you take away all the replay stuff, there's still a lot in there that I'm shocked about. Yeah, didn't know about.
The fact that you can walk through the wall and just kill Diaz instantly without his AI even activating and stuff. That's a classic.
I didn't know a single one of those things, but yeah, why would I?
Yeah. I mean, it's stuff like this was usually found years later, so you could say Rockstar have done a pretty good job overall. Because a lot of this stuff wasn't found instantly. If a glitch takes 10 years to be discovered, then it's pretty good. Game's pretty solid.
Good. It adds depth to the game too. The fact that people are still playing it, talking about it. Maybe they wouldn't be if there was absolutely zero glitches at all.
Yeah.
No chance to speedrun it, really.
Absolutely. Okay, should we wrap up this portion and do a sort of short Q&A? Would you be okay with that? If people from my chat room asked you questions, it can be about anything, I suppose, but I assume it would be relevant to your time with DMA/Rockstar.
Yeah, anything. I'm just going to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, no worries. So if you guys have any questions for Gareth, as I say, it can be about anything, write them in the chat. I guess while I keep writing, we can start. So the first one is, did you know that Vice City would be such a huge game when you were working on it?
Yeah, I think so. I remember going in there and thinking, Jesus Christ, they're going to make millions out of this. This is unbelievable. So yeah, I was just like shocked how good it was. Just knew it was going to be big. And obviously GTA 3 was massive already, right? So I guess
I was going to say that, Vice City was sort of like building on GTA 3's one. I imagine if we ever spoke to a GTA 3 developer, they would have a completely different answer, because GTA 3 was...
Yeah, I know a lot of the GTA 3 and GTA 2 developers as well.
Yeah. Next one. So someone was asking, I know you already sort of briefly mentioned it during the run, but which character did you voice? Do you remember the story of that? I know you do, so I guess rephrased is just, can you tell the story to the chat room?
I remember they wanted someone from Newcastle, right? And there was one guy there who was from Newcastle, and he said, "Oh, my accent's not as strong as this bloke's." And they came and got me, and they said it was, because Driver 3 was coming out, was already out, or Driver, which was kind of just ahead of GTA and had like a bit of an open world thing. They wanted it to be a piss take of the main guy from that, which I think was called like Bruce Tanner or something, right?
Yeah,
because that was me.
There's actually an entire mission that rips into him in GTA 3. They gave him like the female running animation and stuff like that to emasculate him.
Sort of extension of that, yeah. And they said, what would someone from Newcastle, what would a Geordie say if they got like run over or something? And I was like, what did I say? I said like, "Oh, I'm going to Ganyem now, man." Or, "No, I'm Ganyem," or something like that. And they were like, "Well, nobody understands what that means. That doesn't mean that's not English." So I was like, "All right." So I said like, "Oh, shite, man, I'm out of here." And then that was meant to be this Bruce Tanner guy, but I don't know. I've never heard it ever in the game, so I don't know. But yeah, that was the story. It wasn't a proper character as such, right? Like I know many people who did voice all the characters. The stalker and that, he was the guy who was the musician at my company before he went to Rockstar.
So speaking of Rockstar, why did you actually leave them? What was the story there?
No, I just couldn't handle it. Trying to get up early every day and go to bed early every day, and I was living in a different city as well, right? It took me 2.5 hours to get there.
Really?
2.5 hours to get back.
Jesus.
So it was like a walk and then a train and then a walk and then a bus and then another walk. And I was just so tired and that every day I couldn't really do my best work.
Yeah.
So I was like, how do I get out of this? Even though what should have been my dream job. And I thought I could go back to university, back to the old days, that sleeping in till 2 p.m. and staying up till 5 a.m. So I went back and did a master's degree, but I made sure it was in a subject that would help me afterwards, right? So then I could run my own game studio. So did the master's degree so I could run my own game studio, which was Alpha Software at the time. I started in Amiga games and stuff, but that never happened. I ended up joining DC Studios in Glasgow. So it was kind of like the opposite thing, right? Rockstar in Edinburgh, high profile, so professional. Then I went back into the games industry, worked for a small, unprofessional studio in Glasgow called DC Studios. So, but that was better, right? Because I could go freelance and I didn't have to be there every day at like 9 a.m., So it was basically because I couldn't handle the real world yet, right? Because I just finished uni.
Yeah, makes sense. Next one is what's your favorite radio station in Vice City? If you remember them, then it's been a long time.
I was about to say Metro FM. No, in Vice City. Oh man. Well, basically the '80s ones, right? When you get into the car and you hear the '80s music, and you don't even want to leave the car because you're enjoying it so much. So, I guess they're all '80s, aren't they? But whichever one had the coolest '80s old school music on. I remember they gave us a 7 CD box set with all of the radio stations and all of the music and that. But yeah, I can't actually remember. I did have T-shirts as well. I had a bright pink T-shirt with a yellow heart on it.
Yeah.
Can't remember. Love Radio, I think it was. I was almost too embarrassed to wear it in Newcastle, like because you see someone sees you wearing a pink T-shirt, they're like, they'll make some weird comments and stuff.
Yeah.
I think I gave that to my girlfriend, but yeah, I can't actually remember the name of most of the stations.
Yeah, fair enough. What about your favorite mission? Sort of a double barrel question. Yeah.
So no, actually, yeah, I used to just like the police stuff. Can't remember many missions in particular that I thought were amazing. Obviously, the one at the end was. I remember my heart was racing and stuff, and taking over the mansion in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember what my favorite mission is. The one that I was going to be a voice in, the driving one.
The driver for the
Outside
Malibu one.
Yeah.
Next one we also briefly touched upon, but just in case you want to elaborate at all. Do you have any thoughts or opinions on the definitive editions they released?
Not really, just what I saw. I saw everyone was really disappointed in that, and it was a bit of a shame. But I heard that they've been like drastically improved. But yeah, I heard that they were like based on the mobile ones that were done in Unreal or something.
Yeah.
And because of that, there was like loads of features and stuff missing, and the graphics were a bit crap and stuff at certain points, or the lights were or something. But I think hopefully they fixed it. Although, Rockstar, I've got a lot of games hanging around that they haven't fixed. Like, if you look at Manhunt or something, you download that, it doesn't even work. So hopefully they've been focusing on making them great. But I haven't tried them. My mate just bought them the other day on the Switch, so I'll have to ask him what he thinks.
I think the Switch ports are the worst ones as well, so I'll have fun with that. All right. When was the last time you played Vice City?
Oh, Jesus.
Probably a long time ago.
Yeah, it would have been 2002 or 3. I remember playing it in my flat in Scotland a lot, but that was on the PS2. I haven't really played it since. So the last time I played it would have been probably 2003. We used to all play it a lot, take turns, and just mess around on it. So yeah, 2003, 2004 maybe. I did play Vice City Stories on the PSP, maybe 2006. So I remember bringing it over here when I moved here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been over 20, almost 20 years.
Next one is more of a sort of, outside of Vice City and just talking about your career in general. How many games have you worked on professionally?
Oh, quite a few, I guess. Did the two Amiga ones. They were professional because they were released in the shops and that. So I guess that would be Doom 3 on the Amiga when I was 16. Zombie Massacre on the Amiga when I was 17. And Vice City. Then at DC, I worked on Ice Age Skater mobile game, NHRA mobile game. Then I designed and developed my own one, which I guess you could say it was a professional game because I sold it to DC Studios and that. That was Super Wow Ball. And I've done hundreds of, well, not hundreds, but a lot of ports as well, right? I've ported Paperboy 2 for the mobile phone, did the port of Bust a Move for the Sidekick Blade, Chucky Egg for the Android, quite a few ports of famous games, Double Dragon, even, a mobile port of that to the Android and iOS. Yeah, it's all available on my website. If you go to www.gaz.lol, you can click on game development and app development, and there's quite a lot of history there. But yeah, mostly it's porting actually that I've done. But I've made a lot of my own games, but just for myself mostly. I've done a lot of app development as well, probably more app development than games for big companies and brands in the UK. Royal Ascot and
Remember you did a lot of work
BBC.
for the NHS, I think I want to say, and the BBC as well, right in the UK?
Yeah, done quite a few apps for the NHS. I did the CBBC Buzz app, which was a cool little app. It was like a painting thing and that. But then, like, I don't know, one day I went and checked the download figures and it was just gone. But it was a cool app. Yeah, I did work for the Michael J. Fox Foundation as well on Parkinson's type. And, loads of theme park apps for the big theme parks in the UK and a lot of music festivals around Europe and stuff. Been doing apps since 2003, actually. When I left Rockstar and I went straight to DC Studios, ever since it was all mobile coding, right? J2ME, and then eventually Android, iOS, and now, Switch and, desktop and VR.
Next question is actually from Dinosaur Bites, who you might recognize. He was the one who I told you about before, who is making Clive and Wrench, and he also made the Vice City Titan Vice mod. I showed you his game earlier. Don't know if you remember.
Oh, I looked at the game. I was absolutely amazed. That was beautiful. Really good looking game.
And he asked, were there any bugs/unintended mechanics that you or Rockstar knew about at the time, but left in deliberately because they were fun?
Well, that's a good one. I remember one that I discovered, and it was something in the code I found, and it was about if you leave him long enough, he looks at the girls' asses, and I don't know if many people knew that or if it even made it into release, but I remember laughing about that when I found out, and I took over the camera code. Actually, I was given the camera code to do from the guy who was on about who went to the police, and I found out that it still looks at the girls' asses even when they're like dead and covered in blood. And I remember thinking, is that sick? Is that a bug? Should I remove that? But I just thought it was funny, so I just left it.
I don't think that's in the final release, so I guess they removed it. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, as far as I know, I'd probably have to test it because it's not really something that you do in speedruns or anything. But I'm pretty sure he doesn't do that by like default. But I could be wrong. I'm not sure.
I could be wrong too. I might have made all that up, but no, I'm pretty certain it did happen.
Next one is, how was it working with the sort of higher ups in Rockstar? Leslie and people like that.
Oh well, working with Leslie was amazing. He's a really cool guy, really smart, really decent, treats you really well. Just an absolute brilliant guy. I went drinking with him a few times and that as well. Um, People like Andy Semple, you never really get to talk to that much, so hard to say. But he seemed like a really good guy. And the houses, you never meet them. I think I met one of them once. So really, the only people who are really high up that you'd meet and talk to regularly would be Leslie and like some of the top coders and producers like Oba and Adam Fowler and that. And yeah, they were all really, really nice guys. Go for beers and food and stuff. So all amazing people actually, and everyone at Rockstar was pretty awesome.
This one you've again already kind of touched on with the Doom speedruns and whatnot, but it's just sort of a more general question. What do you think of speedrunners in general? GTA speedrunners and keeping the game alive and whatnot.
Oh, I love it. I watch GoldenEye, Doom, little Mario. Um, I think it's a great thing. I try and make my games like speed runnable. I think a lot of developers do actually. So yeah, I think it's awesome, and I think it does keep the games alive. Right, keeps them going so much longer. People talking about them. There's no way I'd be watching Doom and GoldenEye videos every day if it wasn't for speed running. And obviously, I'm going to watch more GTA ones now. I didn't really think GTA would be speed runnable because I thought, well, there won't be that many glitches, and it'll all boil down just to some guy, running quicker around a corner or something. It wouldn't be quite as interesting, but it actually is interesting.
Plenty of glitches. Plenty. Cool. Next one, going back to your time at DMA and Rockstar. If any, how much creative input did you have?
Yeah, none really. That's one of the reasons I couldn't handle it because I've been a game designer my whole life, and then you go there and you don't actually get any creative input at all. The mission guys, they have a bit of fun. The writers and that have fun, but the coders themselves, not really. You're just doing what you're told, right? So
Yeah,
there
you
isn't
just
really much.
have to make their dreams come true, basically.
The only one creative decision I can think of that actually made it into the game was so pathetic that it's not even worth mentioning. But I remember we were trying to translate the map screen, and the word "map" was too long in German, and I I did German, and I remember I can't remember the word now, like brief cart or something, and I just said, "Oh, you call it this instead," and that was it. It went in, and I was like, "Yeah, I made some change there. I made the word shorter."
So it was actually your idea for it to be called carts in the German translation.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
There you go.
obviously
That's creative input, I'd say.
you get creative input in most companies in your code, right? Because no one's going to say, "Oh, you need to rewrite all that." So the code that you're writing, I guess, could be considered creative, right? If you're like, "Well, I did it this route, and I used this variable name, and I used this method, and did it in this way," then you are getting a lot of creativity actually there, but not in terms of what any consumer would actually see.
Yeah. Next one is, did Vice City feel grueling to develop considering it was made in less than a year? What was the company morale like at that time?
Yeah, well, I couldn't really say because I wasn't there throughout the whole development from the start to the end. I remember it was getting quite crunch worthy at the end, and Leslie came around and told everyone, let's chat, let's messenger, let's messing around, let's get this finished. So I think for some of them it was really grueling, and I knew people were sleeping under their desks and stuff and staying there for months, like out of choice. I think they weren't forced, showering in the office and sleeping in the office and just working on it all the time. I think it was grueling But that was one game and one project I managed to actually avoid feeling like that, which I'm glad because I've been through a million projects that were horribly grueling from start to finish. So I think it was quite grueling, but everyone loved it so much that everyone was excited and happy. And obviously, the whole office is just full of 80s music constantly because everyone's playing the game. So
yeah,
kind of made the atmosphere cool.
Third to last question is, do you remember any of the official vicecity.com Flash websites?
Well, I remember Rockstar's original website, which I was offered to work on. It was like a little man. I think it was. Yeah, I do remember them. I think you could control like Tommy Vercetti. You could click somewhere and he would walk like an isometric flash thing.
Yeah,
And
they had all sorts of ones that were sort of leading up and even after the game's release. They even had a bunch, with like the advertisements, like petsovernight.com and stuff like that. They made websites for those ones if people chose to visit them in their own time.
Still sometimes we're petsovernight.com shit.
Yeah.
I remember some company I spoke to, they were like, "Oh, we've been playing with your website. We think it's awesome." So the only person I would have spoken to at Rockstar would be SN Systems, I guess, right? Which is like a company in London who supply all the network stuff. So yeah, I do remember people talking about them, and they were like cool. And Rockstar Warehouse was just starting out with that kind of old Chinese, like Hong Kong style website, really like 20 years ago now. And I remember thinking it was an odd thing, but it was cool. So yeah, I kind of do remember some of that. Yeah, Stuart Petrie, he made them.
And the penultimate question is sort of a big and broad one, but you can give multiple answers if you want. What was your favorite thing to work on when you were at Rockstar?
I didn't actually enjoy any of it that I was working on really because I managed to get myself in there as a network programmer and con myself even in my own head thinking that I was a great network programmer because I'd made a little online game. But actually, what I wanted to do was work on the fun bits, right? Heads blowing up, guns shooting, cars spinning off. Couldn't do any of that. I was mostly writing boring network code, or even the camera code seemed really exciting to me, compared to what I had been doing. And so I didn't actually enjoy really any of it. That's kind of why I left to do my own thing and go to other studios and maybe become a bit more lead and a bit more creative. So that was half the problem, right? I don't even like network code, and I'm writing a network game right now, right? And it just ruins the fun of writing games altogether.
Yeah.
Network coding ruins the fun of game development. It's the problem.
I absolutely agree. I did a lot of networking code stuff in uni and it was awful. I hated it.
Sure.
And the final question, which is a great sort of one to end on, because it sort of segues into an outro in a sense. What are you up to nowadays? What are you doing since you talked about moving to DC Studios and stuff? But what's the future looking like? The present and the future.
Yeah, well, I met a girl when I did a master's degree after Rockstar. Met a Taiwanese girl, and then I worked at DC. And then when I saved up enough money, I moved to Taiwan. So I'm living in Taiwan, freelancing. I'm mostly in Unity, so mostly apps for people or games, Web3 games and stuff. But my main thing is my own two games. The one I'm finishing up right now is called Tenement, and that'll be out on the Switch in the next month. But my main thing is a game called Genocide Dolphins, which is a cyberpunk game, which I really hope to get out. And it's not like a Vice City clone or anything, but it's a guy who walks around a city doing different tasks and stuff, and it's really cyberpunk and really cool. So that what I'm really doing is just trying to finish off Genocide Dolphins, and then hopefully make enough money from that to just go completely independent and not be freelancing or doing anything for anyone apart from waking up and working on my own games.
Yeah. I suppose it's like a follow-on from that. Where can people find you if they want to talk Rockstar or get involved in your current projects or support you? Where can people find you?
Yeah, well, my main website would be, www.gaz.lol. That's kind of a hub that takes you to my other ones. My main portfolio is www.garethmurfin.com. My games portfolio is www.gaz.autos, AUTOS. I do have a Discord, actually. Never anyone joined. So my email, you can email me, find that on garethmurfin.com. So, and go to my YouTube channel as well. Tynepunk, TYNEPUNK. And all the stuff I do, I usually try and upload videos on there. So there's loads of interesting videos on Tynepunk, actually. You can track the whole development of Genocide Dolphins right back to 2012, and all the ones I did before that failed, right? I had a zombie game that I was writing called The Dead Walk. Wasted 7 years on that. And, lots of previews of apps and stuff I've done on there. So, yeah, GarethMurfin.com is my main portfolio. You can check it all out there.
All right, awesome. Well, Gareth, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for staying up. I know it's quite late over there, and taking your time to learn about our community, things like that. I'm sure I can speak on behalf of everyone that it's been an absolute honor to have you here with us. So yeah, I would give you a round of applause if it would go through my microphone, but it doesn't because of a noise gate. But just know that I'm applauding you right now, and so is everyone else.
No, it's been great. I really enjoyed it. Actually, all Vice City stuff I love. And I loved seeing the code on that ReVC project. And then that's kind of how we ended up linking up, isn't it? Just by curiosity of seeing what the community has done and how passionate people are about Vice City and stuff. And I am too, right? I really love the game. And I was just right place at the right time to actually get some time working at Rockstar North. It was an amazing thing. I'm so far away from the office now. I don't like office jobs. So even if Rockstar, even if I wanted to work for Rockstar, couldn't, because I bet they wouldn't let you work remote from your own house and in a different continent. So yeah, it's awesome to talk about anything Rockstar. I reminisce, and sometimes I even wonder, did all that happen? It's been so long ago, it doesn't even seem real. Especially considering every one of my friends all the time talking about GTA. And I'm like, I worked on that, and you can almost sense that they think, nah, he didn't really do that. He's just lying,
Yeah, of
Why
course.
is his name not in the credits if he really did? And I'm like, I don't know, man. But as I showed you today, you can actually search for my name in the drive which holds the game, and it does come up. It's just that it was cut from the end screen.
I'll put it back on screen for those who weren't here at the start, that you can see his name in the credits.
Yeah, next to things like Lorna scooters and Rumble Tums. That's where we used to go and get our sandwiches.
Yeah.
I think that's in the credits, and I'm not. The sandwich shop is in the credits, and I'm not. And I did do quite a lot of code, obviously, in 4 months, right? Network code, and I might have kickstarted the entire networking thing that has made billions for Rockstar and GTA 5. There might be a sliver of my code in there, right? My research and all of what I did could actually be sitting in the middle of all that. Who knows?
Dinosaur Bites just said I'll have to put his name back in for the next patch of Titan Vice. So there you go. If you play Titan Vice, Rob will put your name back in the credits for you.
Oh, I would love that. I was just talking about that earlier, saying I need to recompile it and get rid of that condition that removes cred 255, and I'll finally see myself in it. So I would absolutely love that, and I will definitely play it. Actually, I hadn't heard of it until today, but that game, what was the game? Crank and something that looked amazing.
Clive and Wrench.
Very skillful drummer there. Well, I presume that was done in Unreal Engine. I don't know. Ask him.
All right. Well, thank you again so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'll let you get to sleep or to coding or whatever you're going to be doing for the rest of the night.
Yeah, back to the coding, the localization. I'm trying to convert the game to Chinese traditional characters at the moment. Girlfriend's doing the translation. I'm doing the code.
Well, best of luck with it, sir. I'll speak to you soon, okay?
Cheers. Thanks a lot.
Cheers,
Been
guys.
awesome.
Take care.
Cheers.